I'm going to call this meeting to order. My name is Joe McGivern, Chairman of the City Council's subcommittee known as the Finance Committee. Sitting to my right is City Councilor at Large Mike Sullivan, to my immediate left, City Councilor at Large Peter Tallman, and to Peter's left, City Councilor at Large Jim Leahy. Also joined by Ward 5 City Councilor sitting way over to the right here, Linda Bacon, and in front of us, Ward 2 City Councilor Terry Murphy. Welcome, everyone. As I think most people know, we're at the end of a fiscal year, which always brings a moment in time where we have to shore up budgets, as our auditor tells us, to make sure deficiencies are taken care of. And we're not trying to do it, next year so that we can close the books and let the outside auditors do their job. But we're also at the time when we're trying to put together the budget for next year. So June is just one very busy month, and I'm saying this just to ask everyone to bear with us, because this is a healthy agenda. And item number one is a request. All of these items are filed except one under my name, but a request from the library for a transfer of vacation. It's a total of $27,000 and $27,020 of transfers going into the Assistant Director of Library. I believe it's reversed in the way that it's actually been requested, but we're going to talk about that. Maria, if you'd like to come in for a quick moment. You can come in and sit, or you can stand right there, but just make sure that mic is on. We are being televised, and microphones are also recording for purposes of reconstruction minutes and everything. If you grab it, please, yeah. Well, Maria, we know you were just here last week with a very similar discussion, so if you want to just recap what's going on here, then I have to ask Tanya to listen, because we're going to have to reverse this.
Well, the request that I submitted was to transfer money. Is it on?
Yes.
Try it. Is that? Green light.
Now it is.
There it is.
To have monies from the assistant director be transferred to the other positions, and somehow it was miswritten. So it looks like I'm asking for all the different positions into the assistant director, and that's not what we sent to the mayor and to the city auditor.
And when we will get the language corrected, if we can, for tomorrow night, so we can vote on the proper one, we'll explain that to the city council. What's the reason for the transfers, Maria? Although I think it's what you were talking about last week, but we need to just do it quickly on record.
Okay, at the beginning of the fiscal year, one of the assistant director left, and leaving the opening for a new position. And since I couldn't hire at that time for a new position, we were kind of short-staffed. And in order to cover many of the hours that I had nobody at the front desk and other areas in the library to serve the public, we gave more hours to four library assistants, that they are part-time. So we gave them more hours to be able to cover for those hours that we were lacking staffing.
Okay, so these are per diem people,
Yes.
most of them considered
them.
part-time, but,
Yeah.
part-time with some benefits, and because of the amount of hours that they work. That's
Yeah.
what we discussed last week.
Yep.
So this would, there's enough money in this line item, and would this close out the assistant librarian's line item?
Yes.
Okay, anything else would be returned back as free
Yes.
cash, but,
And if there's any leftover from the different positions that we're filling, because we're trying to cover for the end of the fiscal year, so that's why we're transferring enough. So if there's any hours that were not covered, that money, of course, will come back.
okay. Any questions for Maria? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the transfer.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Thank
Maria,
you.
thank you.
And I also emailed that request to the only people I had in my phone, which is McGivern, Terrence, Linda, and Rebecca. Those are the only ones
Oh, the
I had
most
in my
important
phone.
people, right?
So you'll have a copy as to what we requested the original copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of the auditor about this, about this transfer? So is there a deficit in this account?
We do have one question. Tanya, could Mike ask you a question?
Sure.
Thanks, Tanya. So does this mean right now that people, the library assistants, they've been paid, so there's a deficit in this account? That's what we're doing, is curing a deficit?
Yes, for her whole budget, she's taken and she's putting where her deficits would be so she can cover and end up straight in the end.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually typed that wrong, so forgive me, sorry.
That's okay.
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 Minor. All set?
Yep.
All set, Maria, thank you. Item number 2.
Make a motion to take it off the table.
Motion made, second to remove from the table for the purpose of discussion. This is a transfer from free cash, $6,940.61 to $4,099.23 Assistant Register of Voters, $1,391.38 Election Clerks, $1,350 Board of Register Committee, I believe, and $1,350 for pay temporary seasonal, for a total of $6,940. Under discussion, Tanya, I believe you're speaking for both the department head and for yourself on this one?
Yes, because actually it was more of an accounting error and a timing issue. So you did a transfer to the Assistant Registrar of Voters for $29,000 in October, but it really should have been for $6,940. So the employee moved positions and also made more money. So the timing issue was they didn't transfer enough money into that particular line, but because she was making more, the other line also went into deficit.
What, doesn't make a difference about who, but what was the titles of the employee positions that moved?
Elections clerk, it was transferred from the elections clerk to the Assistant Registrar of Voters. So that employee moved from that one line to another
Thank you.
in that same budget, in the city
And
clerk's budgets.
there's enough free cash. After this evening and what happens tomorrow night, will we have any free cash left?
No.
Are there any questions for the auditor? Any discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the transfer.
Motion made, second to approve the transfer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Tanya. Item number 3 is an MOU of the City of Holyoke Deputy Fire Chiefs Associations, which I see anybody here representing the fire department. Gentlemen. We did receive the full city council a copy of this MOU in time, as required by both ordinance and practical reasons. We do not vote on a contract, but we need to know the details of a contract, because especially if it has any impact that requires an appropriation. Appropriations can be in the form, in the middle of the year, of a transfer, or appropriations can be part of the initial budget, which we are about to vote on a week from tonight. So I put the MOU on anticipating that this money is the money to cover these increases will be in the budget. Are you aware of that, or?
I'm not aware, Counselor.
Okay. Could the auditor approach?
So that transfer was actually put in prior to this. And because the MOU hadn't been done, or the MOA, then we had to refile it at a later date. So it changed the figure, but it's in with the MOA. It's number 5. The chief official of wires. Is that what it is?
No, this is the
Oh.
deputy chiefs in the fire department. Come on, get with the picture. You were doing so good.
Confused. Sorry about that. Well, this doesn't start until next year.
Correct. But we're voting on the budget
But they
next
haven't
Tuesday.
budgeted for any raises within the fire department,
They
to
haven't.
my knowledge. Not for these, because they didn't know what it was, unless I'm incorrect in that.
I'm not positive.
I believe I'm correct.
No, we're not aware that
The chief
money that's in
budgeted
here,
for
that
it.
the chief budgeted in advance for that. However, the chief was an integral part of the negotiation, so he's aware of this, obviously.
Okay.
We can't do anything with this.
Well, we can't.
The chief was part of the negotiations. I did confer with him. He is aware of these amounts. I believe that he put it into his budget. It's the same exact amounts that the regular firefighters received. So I believe he put these numbers in across the board.
Why don't we start and do this real quick?
Of course.
If the money is in the budget, we vote on it next week. Could you just run through, we have the contract in front of us, the increases are July 2nd, which would be in the beginning of this new budget we're about to vote on, of 1.25% increase, January 1st, another 1.25%. After that, the increases are 1% in 2020, January 2021, 1.5% in July of 2021, and January of 2022. Obviously, those last four increases, we will not have the money in front of us till we get to those fiscal years. But in case the money is in the budget, Jeannie, do you want to run us through this contract? Are there any more language in this contract that would have financial impacts on the budget?
Of course. Item number 3 in the MOA does increase the annual stipend that the deputies receive for being a EMT basic and the amount for being a paramedic. Obviously, that is very important that a firefighter and a deputy have that ability and that knowledge. This amount, considering there's only a few deputies, is very incidental. It's not a huge amount.
It's 150 and 300
Correct, per deputy fire chief.
per individual, thanks.
Number 4 is a reimbursement of the cell phone. The deputies are constantly on call. I mean, their life revolves around the department. They, up until now, did not receive any type of income for using their personal cell phones. So we did negotiate that they would receive, or they'll be reimbursed $500 per year, and that they are told that that they are expected to use their cell phones for business use in order to receive this stipend. There's a few cost measures in this MOA. Article 5, the clothing allowance. Up until this point, the clothing allowance was issued as a separate stipend, but the chief informed me that if that amount was rolled into the yearly base wages, it would be easier financially for the department to figure out the wages and the amount, and in order to do the budget. So this amount should be in the budget because it's not any different than it was before. Number 6, longevity. Most of the deputies, fire chiefs have been here 20 plus years. So instead of going through that chart and receiving a certain amount, 1%, 2%, 3% based on the years here, like the regular firefighters, it's just going to be 3% across the board. It's just going to be easier for budgeting. That way, we know the set amount when we're going into the year. The last one, I believe, that has to do with number 9. This basically is a break even. We're reducing the amount of vacation days by 2 days, but they will receive 24 hours straight time put into their yearly base pay. This actually is a good thing because at the end of their career, as far as buybacks, there'll be less, and they'll just be getting it per year. I think, and then paragraph 14 may or may not have to do a little bit financially. They can't be out they can be out for light duty, for sick, and work injury for 60 days, but up after 45 days now, they can be made to, or if a doctor says so, they can come back and be put on light duty, so that actually would be saving the city 15 days pay, if that's the case, or 15 days wasted pay. That is, they'll actually be working instead of off on light duty, instead of off on workers' illness. Any other questions?
Gina, just on the rolling into the base pay, 2 or 3 areas there, What impact is that going to have on retirement at the end of the deputy chief's career?
I was told that there'll be less vacation days that they can cash in.
What about, is it going to increase the retirement
It would,
contribution that the city has to make because they'll have a higher retirement figure to deal with?
I'm not sure about that. I know that this was the chief's suggestion as a cost-saving mechanism.
Longevity is already part of your retirement.
Longevity
So, yeah,
is,
that's
yeah.
already something that's figured into your
Uniforms aren't.
retirement. The uniform is not.
You might want to calculate that. Gentlemen, there's some old police officers that are still out there, Johnny, that, would be very proud of these guys on this contract, I think. And I think John knows what I'm talking about, but would you like to tell us your version, and
Our version of what? I'm sorry.
you'd like to see it passed?
Oh, absolutely. We would really love that. But I mean, I think the city solicitor, Gina, she touched on most points really, really well. If you have any questions on certain areas, I'd be happy to maybe elaborate or give a different point of view. I do want to say, I'll go for the reimbursement of EMS fees. Or actually, let's start with the wages. So up until January 1st, 2021, so that mirrors what 1693, the rest of the firefighting body, has right now. Their contract actually ends at that point. So that 1.5, that's new to us because their contract will actually end before those two happen. So just in transparency there, that's how that's working out. But those numbers from July 2nd through January 1st, 2021, the first 4 percentage raises are mirrored towards 1693. The reimbursement EMT fees, right now we have 4 deputies that are EMTs, so there's 2 that aren't. And of those 4 deputies, 4 of them are EMT basics. So that would reflect the $150 per year that's also almost mirrors 1693's contract. They're getting reimbursement fees for the $150 to keep their EMT license, and that's to offset the costs of actually having to renew your license. It doesn't have to do with anything with going to classes or anything like that. That's just for the license itself. The $300 for a paramedic reimbursement, we don't have at this point any paramedics as deputy chief, so right now that really doesn't even apply to us, and I don't see it applying in the near future anyways. Reimbursement of cell phones, like she said, we're using our cell phones constantly. Chief Pond is calling us, trying to get updates on scene. When he's getting calls, from counselors or the mayor, he's like, hey, what's going on down there? He calls us on our cell phone. We'll talk to him. We'll take him a picture. We'll send him a picture so that he has some situational awareness. So that's something that we really like having, and it's great for the city to help us out on that. The clothing allowance, like you said, we're getting that now just in an annual stipend. So yeah, we'd like to roll that in. It's easier for the city. It's easier for everybody. And like you said, Mr. Chairman, it's gonna be factored into the retirement at the end. There's no doubt about that. The longevity, like we said, it already is factored in. The longevity percentages. We still are right now today, not under percentages. We're under actual stipends of X amount of dollars for X amount of years. Again, the firefighting body, 1693, they just went over to percentage longevity also. And they have you could argue a little bit better than us because they've got a 4% step where we're just locking ourselves in at 3%. And that's just something that the city will never have to figure out again. This guy's got that many years. This guy's got that many years. We have a couple deputy chiefs that are coming up to the 4%, but now they're going to be locked in at the 3%. That is, of course, assuming we were going with mirroring the 1693 budget. Contract.
On the cell phone, I think that's appropriate that one uses their own personal cell phone. They should be reimbursed, but from a cost-effective point of view, how much use of a cell phone is necessary, and would it be even better and cheaper just to buy some cell phones and to make them available, for deputy
I don't know
chiefs?
the actual numbers, but I think to have a work cell phone is going to cost you more than that per year per deputy chief. So instead of us carrying around 2 cell phones, our personal cell phone, which of course we could leave at the station at that point if we had a city cell phone. But I think a city cell phone in the name of each deputy is gonna be more than $500 a year. Again, I don't have those numbers in front of me, so I can't, actually say that as a fact, but we would obviously each need to have one. You couldn't have one shared cell phone because like the solicitor said, we get called in, we've got 2 deputy chief and a safety officer on scene, and then one of us is home, we get called in, now we're going to calls and we're protecting and going to other calls in the city, and like I said, we're conversing with the chief or calling the alarm room. Some things just don't want to be said over the air. There's many phone calls we make on a regular basis to homeowners and business owners and alarm companies and the chief and the alarm room. So I think that's definitely very important. And like I said, I think it would cost more to have 6 department-wide cell phones for the year for each deputy chief, which obviously, like I just said, we should all have a cell phone in this day and age.
Gentlemen, Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, thank you. I support this, I support this wholeheartedly. I support you guys. I think you guys do a fantastic job. Who did you guys negotiate with on the city side?
We negotiated with Solicitor Gina and Hector, and Chief Pond was there for, I'd say, most of them, let's just say.
Okay.
And then we had a negotiating.
Because I think you guys did a very, very good job negotiating.
I got to say, this is one of the best negotiations. It was a lot of quick give and take. It was what I think negotiations should be.
So let me ask you that. What did the city take?
What did the city take?
Yeah.
The city, well, let's take a look here.
Seems like,
They took 2 vacation days from us. That's going to help them in the long run. There's no doubt about that. That's 2 less that we may sell back. That's 2 less we're going to sell back at the end of the year. That's 2 less that's going to create overtime. And we know how overtime goes, and we know how what's the word I'm
Crunched.
looking for? Yeah, how delicate overtime talk is. So definitely those 2 days are going to benefit the city. Again, the longevity roll-ins and the clothing allowance roll-ins, those are things that the city proposed. Those are the things we proposed. We were amicable to them, absolutely. The city proposed a longevity, and we negotiated obviously the percentage, but the city proposed a longevity. And again, that's something that's already budgeted for. That money is already in our retirement. It's everything like that. That's something that makes it easier for the department to budget for. So that's something that the city got for it. Maintenance committee, that doesn't have anything. I think the solicitor, she skipped over the continuing education and training. That's number 8. That could be financial, but that's going to be an overtime thing for the chief. So there's a few, if you look at number 8, there's a few mandatory classes that the city, the chief and the fire department, for your ISO rating, to keep your taxes down and your insurance rates down, I should say, your insurance rates down. The ISO rating is important. So to have these things lets us get a better ISO rating. So those are mandatory classes.
Those were classes the city wanted to be mandatory.
Right, and these classes, the city wants to be mandatory. So we were doing these classes for years on our own. And we would go to the class, and we would be with other members of fire departments and police departments, and everybody's on overtime, and everybody's either getting their shifts covered, and we were just taking vacation days when we had to go to these classes. So that's something that we found really important. And that being said, every class that's on here, the NIMS 300, NIMS 400, every single one of the deputy chiefs has that, except for one deputy chief doesn't have, I think it was the NIMS 400, and he's going to that very soon. I think there's 5 out of 6 of us that have the safety officer, so that's not something that right there is going to be very cost prohibitive. It should be nickel and dime every once in a while.
Yeah.
And then, as you can see, it says any specified training is agreed to the chief and the union. So the chief's got to.
Once again, I'm supporting this. I support you guys. You guys do one heck of a fine job. And all I have to say to you guys is be safe.
Thank you.
And the NIMS mandatories are also, they're required for grants. So you have to have that stuff to be able to get the federal grants to the levels that they were for us. That's why they mandated them.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
Thanks. How many deputies were there last year?
6.
And in 2018?
6.
Because I'm looking at the budget. In 2018, we spent just shy of 500,000. Fiscal 2019, 500,000, but we're budgeting 585, and a 3% increase on would only be $15,000. We'd be at 515. Do you know any idea why they're requesting 585
I
in the
do
line item?
not know
I
why
can't answer that,
that
Counselor.
line is there, no.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Reagan.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure I understood your discussion on the longevity change from the stipend to percentage. It sounds like it didn't change the cost in the budget at all, from what you're saying?
No, I think there's going to be a change, but it's going to be a change that is easier to budget in the future, easier just on the books. And again, it almost mirrors, it's actually, like I said, almost mirrors the 1693 contract a little bit. They got a 4% portion where they just did that in their last contract too. They went from just a yearly stipend depending on how many years you
Right.
worked, and they changed to a percentage. They
based
changed
on-
to a percentage type stipend. So we're doing the same thing. We're changing to a percentage stipend.
And, well, actually, what we're doing in this is, once that rolling happens, we're eliminating longevity. So our contract will no longer have longevity in it at that point. It'll be something that won't ever be discussed again. It'll just be gone.
But it will be happening.
Yeah, it'll
Yes,
have
it'll
been
still be
rolled in.
happening.
So, do you know how much it added to the budget?
No, I don't think I have that number broken down.
So if,
It should be fairly close, and again,
Okay.
I hate to just make those kind of assumptions.
yeah, but it wasn't, as far as you know, a big dollar item.
No, I don't think I have that. Let me see if I have that number. No, I don't have that number broken down of exactly what it is.
Thank you. Maybe our attorney knows?
I do know that perhaps the amount that they formally received was put into the budget. I don't know if it was changed to the 3% or not, so it might be a little bit higher than it was before. All I can say is that I can see if the chief can be here tomorrow when this is discussed in full council and maybe answer those questions.
Okay.
All set, Counselor? No? Counselor Dahlman.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming down, and thanks for the work you do. I appreciate that. A couple items, can you explain the clothing allowance again and how that rolls in?
So we get a clothing allowance right now. We've been getting that for
Or-
as long as I've been there, which is, a few years anyways. So instead of getting the clothing allowance check in July, when we usually get it, that's just rolled in and just spread out through the entire year. And then as it says in it that, we're still obviously required to buy our own uniforms.
Right.
I think the thing about note when you roll them in at this point is it's something that's negotiated that increases come. I mean, there was an increase in clothing allowance a couple of years ago, so people are gonna come back and look for more. Once you roll them in, there is no more looking to increase it. It's kind of gone.
It's gone
And
after you-
Exactly,
okay.
so there's nothing to try to negotiate with you to get larger. Once it goes into the base, it's just part of it, and then we don't receive clothing allowance. So where, if you had it, you can come back and say, well, you know what, uniforms are getting more expensive, let's go to 1,800. It's done being talked about, and I think that's kind of where we came to agreement on that stuff. It goes into your base, spread throughout the year, a little easier to budget, and we just don't talk about those things anymore, and it kind of goes away, and it,
We're mixing things a little bit more simplified.
exactly.
Yeah, okay. And in our budget, I'm just trying to understand that, and I know we talked about this before, the deputy chiefs, you have 5 at F4 and 1 at F5. Do you know what that stands for?
No,
Yeah.
What do you have?
In our budget book, it says 5, we have 6 chiefs, deputy chiefs, but 5 of them are at F4?
I'm going to assume that F5 would be the first deputy chief.
Oh, the first, okay.
Yes, that's the only thing I could assume.
so those are like different lines, F4, and we have
Okay.
5 at F4 and 1 at F5, is that what you said? Yeah, that's
So
all.
it'd
First
be like
deputy
the
chief,
senior, the first,
I would assume F5 makes more than or one of the two ways, the single deputy makes more.
So that could be why one, I mean, the salary, I can see the salary increase about 80-something thousand, you know, whatever it is, but one of the chiefs then makes a higher amount.
Yes, that's,
Correct.
that's the first deputy. He's more
First
the
deputy.
second in command of the,
Yeah, in
or
case
he's
of
more
the
of an
absence,
assistant chief. He
Assistant
steps
chief.
in when the chief is out.
in the
and-
absence of the chief,
yes.
he steps up. If the chief breaks his leg or something, you know,
You get somebody
like
to-
that.
He goes in there and
He's able
then
to go
he
in.
doesn't get any more pay when he goes in. He's just the chief at that point.
Okay,
For what he's
and-
getting.
And can you explain about the cell phone? I know we had talked about it, but so now you get a check for the cell phones, they'll pay your cell phones, you know,
I think they just put it in our pay.
oh, it's in your pay,
Yes.
so it's just spread out or whatever.
Spread out throughout the year.
It's $9.62 a week.
A week, so it is, okay. I'm just thinking down the road, what it's gonna cost or an increase every year, you know, and
It
that's,
shouldn't be increased every year.
That-
That's one of the ones
it
that
should be just set.
it should be.
Because I
set.
mean, with the salary, with the increases of, you know, the uniform or
Yeah,
the,
that's before the percentage raises. That's gonna be a solid 500 that's just rolled in every, you know, just put into the
Into the-
weekly.
into
or
the weekly.
bi-weekly salary.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Murphy?
Yeah, and maybe here, maybe the auditor, can anyone, and I'm all for what you guys are doing. It's a job that none of us are gonna wanna do, and I appreciate what you do, and I have no problem with the contract, but I would like to know what the financial impact, both the minimum and the maximum in FY '20 would be, based on this contract.
FY '20, it will be $32,776, and those are my own numbers. So I will just leave you with that. There may be some small errors in there because I am not a mathematician.
That's the max?
That's 2020. That's for everything that you just heard in this whole contract. That's the max for 2020 is 37,776.
Okay, thank you.
If we can push the questions kind of towards our auditor, Tanya. Two questions, and you can't answer the first one tonight, but we will not be voting on this tomorrow night, except that we've had a discussion on the MOU, on the MOA. But is the money that we're looking for, the contract is demanding, in the budget that we will vote on next week? We need to know that.
I'll check for you because I don't have a copy of it, and I will get that information
That's fine,
together.
and we don't expect, we just need it by next week. The second question is the rolling of the clothing allowance into the base pay. We were just told that once it's rolled in, it's a one-time deal.
For the year?
No current deputy chief will get a clothing allowance again.
Until, right. Beginning next year. Gina probably can talk about it. She was in the negotiations.
Well, no, I got the negotiation part. I'm trying to get the accounting part. You know, Dale will be doing the figures at the fire station, submitting them to the treasurer,
Yes.
and you will be looking to see if everybody's doing their job.
Yep.
How are you gonna do this one?
Well, because first we have to figure out what the amount was, and then Dale usually does her figures, and I do mine. Hector might do it, and then we all tie in together to make sure that we come up with the same numbers, and then we can give you with the figure. We have to look at their salaries, it's 3%. So if that's the information that you're looking for, we can definitely give you that information, and you can look at what's budgeted.
5 years from now, I trust Dale, I trust you. 5 years from now, you're gone, Dale's gone, now you're too young to be gone. Dale's gone.
Thanks.
Someone puts in for a clothing allowance, puts it into the base pay. How do you pick that up for a second time?
Well, I mean, there's a process that's put in place, so if something is put in as an expense, it goes through to the department, it goes through the department head, it comes to auditing, we check the contracts, we check with personnel, and we make sure that we're following the contract, so we're not in breach. So if somebody's asking for an expense that I know they shouldn't be getting outright, then that will get declined.
That's everyday routine, what you do.
Absolutely.
This is not everyday routine.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yep,
So
Please, Mark, please.
usually the way this works is, and we've done this with like the holidays, we used to get holiday pay and shift differential and stuff like that. So usually the way it's done is within the contract, they say, okay, you're getting X amount for clothing allowance, and that today is now rolled into your base pay. And that's just That's the same number for every employee. So that number is just rolled into your base pay. That language actually stays in the contract. So in 10 years from now, when I'm gone, and the solicitor is gone, and they go and negotiate this contract again, it's there. They can see that, oh, hey, back in 2019, you guys rolled this in. We are not going to let you put it in again, so that you now are kind of double dipping. You get your clothing allowance in your base pay now, and now you want a new clothing allowance that we're trying to sneak in there. I think, is that what you're getting at?
Well, deputy chief retires, deputy chief leaves, new deputy chief comes on board. Okay, so will that new deputy chief one time get a clothing allowance rolled in?
He's getting that clothing allowance at his rank as a captain. As soon as he comes up, and this is the way I understand it would happen, as soon as he comes up to our rank and starts working under our contract, that same number that is in our contract gets rolled into his base. That's how I understand
But
it. Maybe I'm
the
missing.
base is already, would the base already be reflecting, even though he wasn't a deputy chief, a salary that has the clothing allowance in it?
No, because their clothing allowance is not rolled in at this point.
No, I'm not saying this right, Mark.
I think I understand what you're
No.
asking.
It's there.
If he gets promoted in September, and is that what you're asking? He gets promoted in September and he got a clothing allowance in July? Is that pretty much the question?
Kind of, but your base pay is X.
Yes, base pay is X.
A captain, we know the base pay, he's getting the clothing allowance, not in the base pay. So now the captain becomes the deputy chief. They changed the salary to the deputy chief's salary. Won't that salary already have the clothing allowance in it?
Ours will have the clothing allowance in it already.
All right, so the captain no longer gets a
He
clothing allowance.
no longer gets one then. So once he gets promoted, he's out of their union and into our association, and he no longer gets that clothing allowance. That's
Period.
gone. Yes,
Period.
exactly.
So this will never happen again. My question's answered. I just asked it the wrong way.
All right.
Thanks. Anyone else? We're joined by our president, Councilor McGee, also a member of the committee, and Ward 3 Councilor Dave Bartley. There's no other discussion?
Make a motion that it's been complied with?
Motion made second that the order has been complied with. That's the correct motion. We will tell the city council tomorrow night the order is complied with. The actual vote that would make a difference, if the money is in the budget, will be next Tuesday. Okay, so we'll know that in a couple days from our auditor. If there's enough money to cover this, then when we vote on the budget, we will make a note that evening that we have received and reviewed the MOU.
Okay.
And we understand the impact, and that would cover not just fiscal year 20, but also future years.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Doing good, we're doing good. All the ways up to item number,
Make a motion to take up item number 4 for discussion.
Second?
motion made and second to take item number 4 off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. This is the Professional Supervisors Association regarding a creation of a new position known as the chief official of wires. Motion to invite our building department head in, Damian Cody, and anybody else here from the association? Damian, you gonna handle both tonight? Okay, this is, same thing, there's no, the transfer in front of us is not about what we're gonna be discussing, other than the fact that the transfer in front of us is no longer needed for this fiscal year, because this position has not been filled and won't be filled before July 1. So the money to pay for this MOU is in the budget on page 22, I believe, or 23. And same thing as the previous item, page 22. Same thing as the previous item. We're doing our due diligence, discussing the impact of this MOA financially, and any discussion as to creation of positions and all that is certainly open for discussion this evening, but any actual vote would not take place until we vote on the budget, which would be next Tuesday. Gina, did you negotiate this one?
I did.
Okay, can you run us through just like the last one?
Yes, the city and the association agreed to create 2 new positions. One was with the building department, the chief official of wires, and one was with the Veteran Services Department, the National Service Officer. Both job descriptions are attached to the package, as well as the signed forms by both personnel and the mayor creating the position. We agreed to set the salary of the chief official of wires at pay grade 10, as well as the national service official at pay grade 8. In order to do so, actually, I skipped a step. Both positions, due to the nature of the position, due to the fact that the chief official of wires has certain qualifications, including the fact that this person is going to be a supervisor, and including the fact that this person needs to be a master electrician, means that this person fits the characteristics of current members of the Professional Supervisor Association, and this position therefore belongs in that association. As far as the National Service Officer, this position is also going to be somewhat supervisory. It also requires a degree, an associate's degree, as well as a national certification. Therefore, that position also falls within the criteria of being a member of the Professional Supervisors Association. And again, as I already said, we agreed to set the chief official of wires at pay grade 10, since that position relates to other positions that are currently at that grade, and the National Service Officer at pay grade 8, since that position relates to other positions that are currently at that grade.
Jim, before we turn this over to Damien, will this replace a current position which is in the budget now, or which is part of the department now?
No, it's not going to replace a current position. However, at this point, the positions or perhaps positions will most likely remain vacant.
Okay, and I apologize, Damien can represent both here. Jesus, I don't believe, was notified to be here, which I'll take the blame for that on the position in the Veterans Department, but we still want to proceed with as much as we can with the Building Department and touch base with, if we can, through Damien with the Veterans Department. But let's focus on the Chief Electrical Inspector first. Damien, would you like to explain your reasons for doing this and I know you did a little bit already, but just to bring us up to date on record.
Sure, and I know I was just here a couple weeks ago about it, but I don't remember exactly all the points I covered, so if I repeat myself, sorry.
That's okay.
So we are looking to have a higher level position, a supervisory position that requires more credentials than in the past, and a master's license rather than a journeyman's. That's one of the key elements. And have somebody that doesn't require any real oversight or management on our end. So there's not too much more to it than that. It comes with, I believe I provided a spreadsheet at the other meeting with comparable communities, but if I didn't, I have one copy with me. The salary is based on the average around comparable communities and the like. The different average of others right now for the everyday electrical inspector is $63,000. And if they're supervisory or senior, they're higher than that. So that's where we get the range, and the range is just that. We're not going to necessarily hire anyone at the top or the bottom. We're going to hire at the place that they fit best to attract the best candidate. That's probably all I have on the electrical inspector end.
Okay.
I don't have any conflict with this, right?
Say that again?
I don't have any conflict with this, do I?
Well, this is a separate position, so I don't believe so. That's my opinion, though. Who am I, so.
Different position.
Yeah, it's creating a new position and solidifying it in our budget, but it doesn't have anything to do with,
With Councilor Hayes' family member?
that's right.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Make a motion to approve it?
Make a motion at the order. Any questions about the veterans? Well, Damien, are you the president of the association currently?
No, that's Jeff Burkott, but he asked because he was indisposed of some sort for this meeting. He said, do you mind taking care of that? And I have limited knowledge of the intricacies, if you're referring to the Veterans Department.
Yes.
I did go over the job description when it was proposed, and it did get negotiated with the city. And, the key differences there, again, are higher level of education that fits into the PSA. And, the things we look at is if a position requires a degree, a certification, a license, and supervisory job description, then it probably fits into the PSA, given that it's not held, like, the deputy's chief union is supervision, required degree, but that's specific, that would go there. But otherwise, citywide, it's the family of our, jobs.
And we have had a public discussion with Jesus on the details and the reasoning. And with both the law department and Damien representing the association on the veterans, will this be eliminating a position in that department?
It won't be eliminating a position, however, a position may remain vacant for a little while. I believe that there is an intent to fill the vacant position down the road, but I'm not sure it's going to be in the budget.
In the budget, there is no money for the current deputy commissioner. Does that mean he gets this job?
I believe that one's going to remain vacant for a while, until maybe down the road.
So
But it's not
you're
eliminating.
laying off,
It's not eliminating the position.
well, what's going to happen to that person?
This person, the person with the job presently is going to be probably encouraged to apply for this job because that person meets the qualifications.
Association agree with that?
Yeah, mostly so it'll be an open position that anyone could apply for. The thing with the PSA is we don't have internal posting requirements in our contract, so there's no internal, and it will be open to the public, advertised, and best candidate gets the job, allegedly, right? So in this case, as far as I know, I'm not quite sure if that person's even looking to remain employed, but if they are, they may be interested in applying.
Is the deputy commissioner part of the association?
No, the deputy commissioner position is not.
That one is part of a different union.
Yes. I just wanted to get it on record. And no editorial comments from me. I can sum it up in one word. Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, same question that you asked, I asked Jesus.
I remember.
And, I've talked to the current person in the other position, and, I expect that he will apply, but, and he's been encouraged that he's the likely person to get it, but there's no guarantee, so that is, and what I think is happening is they're trying to provide opportunity for expanding the services within the Veterans Administration, but again, there's two people and there's another person that's getting an advancement, but there are one person who has done a creditable job, and I think would probably be the number one candidate, but like Damien is saying, if it goes to the best qualified, what happens if somebody comes in and we've got someone who is currently doing a good job? I mean, that's to me, that's putting that person in a position, he hopes to apply for it, he hopes to get it if it happens. But if it doesn't, then he ends up unemployed, and he's a person who's done a good job in that department. So that is a concern I've had, and I haven't been able to find an answer that makes me comfortable yet.
If we don't vote for the contract, if we eliminate the monies for the new position in the budget, there is no monies for the deputy commissioner in the budget. He gets laid off anyways. I didn't think the city was like that. I really don't get it. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I raised this with Jesus, so I'm not talking about anything we didn't discuss in the past to some degree, but the thing that I tried to talk to him about is how busy is his department? Is the volume up? Is the number of people served increasing? And basically, he indicated that that isn't the case. He indicated that he wants to do more outreach, which I applaud. He indicated he wants to increase the clerical person up to investigator and full-time, which I understand, but to take a $37,000 position and turn it into a almost $50,000 position with the skill sets that we have present in the department already, and not posting the position and not doing an open search, I just have a lot of problems with it. Procedurally, fiscally, I mean, we are not in a place to be bumping slots 12 grand a year. I mean, we're broke. We just found $1 million of expenses we didn't know we had. And it's not a pretty picture. And I tried to share that with him because I have all the respect in the world for all the various departments that come in seeking their budget. And, you know, I applaud people running a department for defending their budget and advocating for their department. But, I mean, this is tough times, and it's just the reality of what we're looking at. But we're in a catch-22 because the other position isn't funded at all in the budget. We can't add. All we can do is subtract. So then we'll end up with, if we cut it, we end up with Jesus and the investigator. So, but I don't like being put in a corner like this. I just don't think it's good business, but that's me.
Any further, Damian?
Just a couple of things. I can't speak about what the Veterans Department does exactly, and, I have a general idea like everybody else, but, I would say in general that the departments are the ones that, and the department heads they're the ones that know what is probably going to work the best. And unfortunately, times change and the needs change. You're going to have possibly a setup in an office anywhere in the city where it's been that way for 20 years. Nobody thought why to change it, but times change. We need to change the personnel, the jobs descriptions, and sometimes we have to shed possibly a clerical staff or add on, two of something else, some other kind of professionals to make the needs of the city work. So I would hope, you guys trust that at least this department head knows that they're doing enough to say, hey, he's coming in. He's really been doing an incredible job. I think everyone thinks that I've ran into compared to some of the last folks in that seat. And if that's true, you give a little bit of faith in that person to say, hey, this is going to suit the needs better for the city or, the mission. I don't know what that is. You guys can give them the inquisition about it another time. But the PSA grade 8, the range is 42,500 to 56. Now that's a fact. It comes out of the contract. I'm not sure what's budgeted. I assume they're asking for the top so that you have the flexibility or something near the top. Doesn't mean it's going to be hired at that, but 42,500 even to 56 is not a tremendous amount of money for somebody with that level of certification as he was, that they're demanding. As Jesus, I heard him talk about. It's a rare thing. Do we need all those folks to have it? I don't know. Again, that's his department. That's all I have on that position.
Thank you. Damian,
45. 49. So in the middle. Yeah,
we
thanks.
do have attached, for everybody's information, we do have attached both the descriptions and what you both talked about, the law department and yourself, and for both positions in your department and in the Veterans Service. We don't have that spreadsheet you were talking about, though, or not attached to it. So if we can get a copy to Ryan, maybe that would help. The one you said you brought tonight?
For the electrical inspector?
The electrical inspector, yeah.
I mean, I can give you mine right here, but if you want copies,
No, well,
if
as
this
long
is
as we have
acceptable.
it with, the original, either I can take it tonight or we can have Ryan, attach it, before next week.
Could I just
Okay.
ask what the range is on the grade 10?
For the grade 10 in the PSA is 51.5 to 70.
70,000?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm just rounding them up and down, so.
That's okay. Thanks.
Any further discussion? So on both of these positions, the motion here would be the same as the last one, that our work here is reviewing the MOA has been complied with,
Motion that the reviewing has been complied with?
made and seconded.
Second.
This will go to the city council tomorrow night, but not for a final vote. and I'll work with the president and tomorrow night with the full city council about how he wants to handle it next week in terms of, we'll report out our findings from this evening, but the actual vote where the monies would be is in the budget. That vote is scheduled to take place next Tuesday night. So we'll take it from there. If there's any needs, someone will contact you, but we will make our report. Is there any further discussion on the motion that the order's been complied with? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Damien.
Thank you.
Make a motion to take up item number 5 off the table for discussion.
We go out of order. This will be real quick.
Damon was next on that one, no?
No, the next one is the health department.
Okay. I thought 5 was the plumbing and gas.
The wire.
Yeah, it's number 5, plumbing, gas.
It's Damien.
Damien? Sorry. I misread one of, our next item is from money from the plumbing gas inspector and from the wire inspector being transferred out
The chief of wires?
to the chief official wire. Oh, this is why we're getting rid of this one.
We are.
Never mind. That was a transfer that would have, Mr. Cody came in to look to see if he could create the position about a month and a half ago.
Right, okay.
And it just wasn't ready, so it's not gonna be needed.
Okay.
So on this one, we're just gonna deny
Deny?
it. Motion to deny item number 5. If we can go out, 'cause, and this is my fault, out of order, we have several items attached to the end of the order that we are not gonna be able to vote on this evening because they're actually being received tomorrow evening for the first time. This is a once a year, not a precedent, but a once a year, I always say we ask the full city council forgiveness, but we try to do a public discussion on what could be a vote tomorrow evening if the full city council so desires. Most of them are transfers going into the medical, health insurance, dental insurance stuff. But Sergeant Hart is here for one grant that was received. And if we could just take that up real quick, because I didn't tell Sergeant Hart to come later.
31, is
I told the Section 19 committee to come later, and
Make a motion to take item 31 off.
makes a motion to take item 31 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John, if you can come in. Item 31 is a grant. What the police department is looking to do is asking us to accept the grant and set up the necessary procedure to allow the auditor, mayor, treasurer, and/or department head to spend the grant. And again, a discussion can take place this evening that we will report to the full city council tomorrow evening. And in doing so, we will possibly take a final vote tomorrow evening. This grant is filed under Councilor McGee's name, who doesn't know it yet. Tomorrow evening, we're receiving it, and it's diverting juveniles and emerging adults from the criminal system to the justice system involvement. The chair is going to step down for a possible conflict of interest, although I did talk with the law department. I have to get an ethics commission ruling on this, because the money's coming from the officer of commissioner's office. Officer of Commissioner of Probation Office. So I'm gonna step out.
You're stepping up.
Okay.
Does that mean you're taking over, Jim?
Councilor Lane's gonna take over the meeting, but it's under your name, I didn't tell you.
I just thought I was back. But no, it goes to the vice chair. I'm not the vice chair. Go.
Okay, well, thank you.
Don't mind my name being used.
First of all, I love when department heads come down here from, the fire department and police department, and they're dressed, appropriately, and you look sharp, and you always look very professional. So today, we just heard from Councilor McGivern that we have an order for a grant. I guess at this point, can you just kind of go through it and walk us through it? Make sure, is this time sensitive? Is there a match? That sort of thing.
Sure, yes. It's a grant from, like you said, the Office of Probation for juvenile diversion. We received this grant the past 2 years for less funding. I think one was for 35, last year was 39, and this one is for 50, and it's a no match. And the majority of the funds
Sorry,
go-
how much did you say it's for?
50,000.
50?
50, yes.
So it went from 39 to 50?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Well, because we're doing such a great job with it, and that's attributed to the Hoyoke Boys and Girls Club and the Hoyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative. That's where the majority of the funds go. Approximately $22,000 is going to the Boys and Girls Club for their summer programs, their teen programs, the Young Marines program, and the other, I believe 19, close to 20,000 is going to Hoyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative, who runs their family fun nights and does their basketball league, which has in excess of 240 youth participating.
Is there a match to it?
No match.
Is it time sensitive?
Yes.
Okay, talk about that.
To get approved and just to have a fund established prior to June 30th of this year.
So it is time sensitive. And, all right, so just help me out here. So this grant is from Office of Probation. Walk me through the first line you said. It was from the Office of Probation, something to do with Department of Justice?
Right, no, it's to, it's a juvenile diversion program. In other words, to keep juveniles off the street and out of the criminal justice system. So we offer all those different types of programs and like basketball league and the summer camp for.
Now, can any of that money go into the line item? And I'm going to say, I'm on the board of directors of the Hoyok Boys and Girls Club as well as you are. But can any of that money get filtered over to the line items of the Hoyok Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, they're going to be like directors for teen memberships. There's other staff positions that are filled through this grant. Again, to pay for those staff members who are conducting the summer programs.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? David, go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sergeant Hart. Just Sergeant, you said 20, just go over the numbers again for me, would you, just fast?
So about 22,000 for the Boys and Girls Club, approximately 20,000 for the Hoyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative, which is the Sheriff's Department, and approximately 8,000 for the Police Department.
Okay, and you indicate you've been doing a great job, and I've never a doubt to that effect. As you know, we filed an order and we passed it into ordinance a few months ago relative to follow-up for grants.
Yes, I do, and I'm preparing some traffic reports to send to you on those grants.
Yeah, I look forward to that, because if I remember, that grant terminates sometime in the fall. I want to say September.
September, that's correct.
Okay, so this would be a similar type of a situation, Sergeant. In the order, we probably, maybe we should have clarified a little bit more, and maybe that's something we can do, but without overburdening department heads and grant administrators. But it would be nice if we had, interim reports. So this grant sounds like it's for 1 year, or am I wrong?
It ends December 31st.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so 6 months. Okay, so we would anticipate a report from you some point in January.
Grant.
January.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's I'm looking forward to hearing more about these as fiscal year 20 comes around. Especially really all of them and every department. So I look forward to that. Just for my own edification, the Boys and Girls Club. What is it that they use the funds for? And do they, how do they participate in the other than getting the check? How do they, are they involved with in what capacity? So tell me what the funds are used for at the Boys and Girls Club first.
So they run a teen membership program, and it goes to the staff who are coordinating and actively involved in that program. A portion goes to the Young Marine program. Again, another portion goes to the staff who organize and participate in that program. They also coordinate with staff members for the basketball leagues. Also for supplies for a lot of those programs. Monies are set aside for that. I don't have the complete budget broken down in front of me, but that's,
All right, and then Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative?
right, so that'll cover the cost of referees for the basketball league, T-shirts for the kids, stipends for the coaches, who also conduct an educational curriculum for these kids who are participating.
Okay, and then the 8,000 for police, is that what's that for, detail work, or?
Right, that's a police officer will be like a police liaison, going into all these programs during the summertime, coordinating and participating at some of the basketball functions, and also a portion of that goes to the administrative cost for conducting the reports, the programmatic and financial reports.
Got it, all right, thank you.
Anybody? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So the police officers going to all the programs, in effect, that is sort of like a teen community policing program. Would that be an accurate portrayal? Because they're really trying to get the police officer to get to know the kids.
Yes, interact with them.
Yeah. Is it one officer?
Yes,
Is it
one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Is it you?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
So
So it'll be multiple officers
Right.
throughout the summer or throughout the season?
Yes.
Okay. And so the 20,000 in Safe Neighborhood Initiative, I'm all for it. And so the 20,000 goes for the summer league?
It's broken down into various parts, like the family fun nights that
Yeah,
you
okay.
attend. A portion of that will go to that.
Okay,
A portion will go to the basketball league, and they're starting up a new table tennis league, so some monies will go towards that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to accept the grant?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so as you know, this will go in front of the city council tomorrow night. Oh, well, first, it might not, because it's a late file. So the city council will have to vote to take it out of the late file and to act on it tomorrow night. Thank you. Joseph?
Just point of order?
Yes.
Point of order?
Yes.
Why is this a late file?
Why is it a late file?
Yeah, why is this not on the agenda waiting disposition?
Not exactly sure. Joe just talked
I can
about.
tell you,
Just talk to the mic there.
It's because we just received the grant, probably a week ago, or,
And you have to act on it by June 30th?
right. That's how it's been in the past, they really quick notice.
Also, this hasn't come through city council,
Comes tomorrow.
it's coming in tomorrow through city council.
Right.
Oh, okay. How did we get on this agenda then? How'd that happen?
I'm not sure.
Got there.
Sergeant, it's all good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph? All right, so that's done with. I see Michael McManus in the crowd. Is there any orders we can take out of order?
Mike has got about 5 orders. The next one on the agenda, and then Mike is right after that, is plumbing,
No, number 6, sanitarian 2.
sanitarian, and it goes hand in hand, I believe, with the mosquito thing.
No. So that is Michael then. But it's you guys. Come on.
Make a motion to take item number 6 off the table for
Motion by
discussion.
second, take item number 6 off the table. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Is it 7, 2, 6, and 7?
And,
Take 'em together?
and 7, Counselor
yeah.
Bartley's order, which is, item 6 is a transfer of $5,000 from sanitarian 2 to professional health services. Item 7, introduced by Counselor Bartley, is the City of Hoyoke consider joining the Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District to continue the efforts of the city's Board of Health to prevent human impact against the West Nile virus in eastern, help me out. Cephalitis. I was looking at the first word. On motion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Gentlemen, welcome. Counselor Bartley, thank you. If we could have an explanation of the $5,000 is to cover the Counselor Bartley's order. Can you first tell us, it's coming from sanitarian 2, why there's a surplus there, and then talk about why we want to join the Pioneer Valley's Mosquito Control District?
Okay, so, good evening. The surplus is there because that is my, it is, yeah. The surplus is there because that is my, as of yet, unfilled position that I vacated before I took over Director of the Board of Health. So, that is posted currently, but it hasn't been filled. So.
Okay. You are advertising though, and,
It is posted.
okay, thanks, Sean. And then, can we talk about the, what this Pioneer Valley, what the $5,000 does for us, and what this whole program is about?
So, at this time, there are 10 districts throughout the state. These are set up in a partnership with the DAR, which is the Department of Agricultural Resources, and the MDAR, which is just Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. They set these up, and they are staffed by communities, typically by county, but it is also by region, in this case, Pioneer Valley. And they pool monies together in the form of entry fees in order to have a greater collective impact on monitoring and hopefully reducing the number of harmful mosquitoes in the region. So in this case, Pioneer Valley is made up of, for this fiscal year's Agawam, Bernardston, Deerfield, East Long Meadow, Hadley, Northampton, West Springfield, Palmer, and Southampton are the current members. And so the $5,000 would get surveillance, outreach, and education. That's all handled by the state's labs. They do the collection, they do the traps. It would be about 36 traps in the area, and they would monitor and they would let us know, if any of the most dangerous, typically larvae is what they're capturing in the traps, were detected in Holyoke.
Thank you. Councilor Bartley, did you want to add something?
Just a question. Where would the traps be placed in the city?
I'm not sure at this time. We haven't joined yet, so I would have to get more information once we're there. But they would be distributed throughout the city. The downtown urban areas are actually the most vulnerable because you have areas where there's a lot of water collection in alleyways, in tires, in just in your typical homes, and like in the urban areas are the most not just vulnerable, but the where there's the greatest likelihood of infection as well, because you have the greatest density of people living. So that's where I would assume the greatest number of the traps would be placed, but it would be dispersed throughout the entire city. It's not relegated to one region.
Yeah, so we have some heavily wooded areas, especially Mount Tom area. It's very popular, so Whiting Street Reservoir, the golf course areas, the two of them. I would hope that they would get some kind of each would get some kind of attention as well, because they're popular recreational areas, and we need to understand what's happening in these areas of the community as well. Second of all, the reports relative to this, assuming this is, I don't know, I can't tell what's going to happen, but I assume this is probably more likely not going to pass, and that we will go ahead and approve the transfer. When can we expect to start this? When can we expect to get results?
Well, so this, the timing of this is probably going to start after the beginning of the fiscal year. And they do have some reports from last year, which they can make available to show some of the trapping that they did and some of the information that they collected from surrounding communities. Obviously, it wouldn't be Holyoke exactly, but I would say that they'll be able to make you aware of the location of the traps and the information as it's collected, I would assume, within the first month.
Yeah, there's no bugs in Long Meadow, so I'm not really concerned about what happens there, frankly, I gotta be honest. But what happens in Holyoke, I do care about tremendously. And I think it's, even though this is a little bit different than the ordinance we passed relative to grants, I think it's still vitally important that we get a report in writing, and then so I would expect that once you have that, you would contact one of us that are, whether it's me or any at-large member or whatever, however you want to do it, and just get an order filed into city council, and then come back to the public safety committee chaired by Councilor Bresnahan, and we would get some kind of feedback as to results of this. Hopefully you and you're the board doctor? Yeah, doctor. Okay, yeah, I thought so. We met once before. Yes, good to see you, doctor. I would hope to have some kind of feedback relative to this, because it's just nice for us to hear, because we can pass. Cause we're the ones that get the questions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So we're the mean city council, but it's nice to sometimes get have an answer or two to provide. So if you could consider that would be helpful.
No problem at all. I'm sure you're not the only city council or municipal body that's asking for those reports, so I believe.
Thank you,
have
Mr. Chairman.
Doctor, I apologize. I didn't mean to bounce over you, and Councilor Bartley certainly was the maker of the order, but could you give us, just for the record, the full name, and if we'd like to add anything to what we've already heard?
Sure. My name is Esteban Daplar. I'm an infectious disease doctor. I'm one of the commissioners for the Board of Health. The board is behind this project. I think that in any city that we collect enough information about the mosquito population, it does help because usually if we just let things fly, by the time that we notice that something's going on is by the time that patients are starting to come into the hospital, and by then it's really too late. So the fact that we're not only monitoring, but actually providing information to the community about how to avoid these mosquitoes from developing, and what should we do with stagnant water, how to get rid of it, what to look for. I think it's a very useful tool. It's worked very well in other areas that have had similar programs. I am originally from Puerto Rico. We do have a big issue with dengue, Zika, and chikungunya down there, all transmitted by mosquitoes. And these programs do help identify communities that are at higher risk. And, we focus more attention and education and resources. And it has been quite successful in that sense.
Okay. Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, both gentlemen. Doctor, welcome into the side of the City Council chambers. Just a question I could see arising is wherever these, and we don't know where we're going to put these, we're going to let the experts decide, but however, wherever they are, probably mosquitoes could be attracted to these. And will that increase the amount of bats that are becoming around?
Usually when you have these type of programs, the traps are made to mimic the actual mosquito population in the area. We don't want to attract more stuff that's already coming in. If it did attract more bats, that's actually a good thing because they eat up all the mosquitoes and ticks and all these other things that can transmit significant diseases to humans. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But usually in the programs that I've reviewed through the literature and my experience back in Puerto Rico, I can tell you that it doesn't really change the flora and the fauna around the area. They try to place these traps in such a way that the attract was already there. They're not going to put an attractant so potent that's going to attract all the mosquitoes from surrounding cities.
All right, thank you so much.
Councilor Bacon? Sorry, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to pose a theoretical, and maybe you can bring me up to date on other things. So if we started seeing a bunch of positives for infected mosquitoes, do we then have any ability to bring to bear a spraying program that's available through the state, or are those not any longer seen as a good thing, or are there next steps?
So to answer your question, the $5,000 pays for the surveillance, outreach, and education.
Right.
In the start of next fiscal year, once they've solidified membership and they have an idea of exactly how many communities are going to be in the district, they'll put out a fee schedule. And I believe there was, I know it was just today I added this, but there's, this was added to the motion from MDAR. It's a description of the services that's offered. It's also on the website, which I can email that to all of you to make it available. They do larvicide if they find that that's going to be necessary. They will spray, and there's even, in like a worst case scenario, they would even do like an aerial spray from, like an airplane, should that be absolutely, an outbreak or something. But those are all services that they do offer, and then as I said, the costs would be determined by the size of the district, and there may be other communities that would also request those same services, and so that might offset the direct cost to the city.
And I do appreciate the approach of preventing the big problem, for sure. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
Thank you. One area I'd like to call your attention to as you get into this program is we have a couple of very large pools of stagnant water. We've called this to the attention of the Conservation Commission for several years now along Canal Street between Cabot Street, base of Appleton Street, and Somerset Street. All right. This is in the most densely populated area of Holyoke. We've got 2 elementary schools right there. I think it'd be vital to make sure that this area is monitored and traps are set in this area.
Agreed.
Usually for this type of program, you'll see that, like Sean mentioned, that they'll put a lot of traps in fairly urban areas to kind of see what most people are exposed to, but more segregated areas that have a potential for a lot of pooling, particularly if they're close to schools, they'll monitor those with particular interest. Because if you look at who gets really affected by West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis virus, it's usually either the very young or the very old. So anyone that's below 5 or 6 or anyone above 65, those 2 groups are the ones that usually get hit and end up in the hospital very, very sick. So they usually take into account that to make sure that if there are schools, if there's a nursing home or something along those lines, that they would make sure to capture information from those areas.
Sean, do you have to enter into a formal agreement with the Pioneer Valley program?
So the way that they suggest joining it would be, there's just, and I believe that was added as well to the motion, but there's some draft language. Essentially, the entirety of City Council would propose joining the Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District, and that would be the totality of our agreement. There's nothing to sign. Once it's proposed by City Council, we would be members, and then the payment would be sent to the state for the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board.
The mayor obviously has signed off on this because he's agreed to the transfer, so he's apprised of the joining. You might want to check with the law department and the mayor's office. You may want the mayor to initiate that, and we're approving the appropriation. But I think you might want to make sure, especially if there's a contract, even though it's professional services, I think the mayor has to approve that through your department. But we'll take our vote accordingly tomorrow, and there should be enough on record to allow what we need to do, but I think you're going to need one more step with the mayor.
Okay, and a note on, should this city council vote to join, the mosquito control district, they specifically mentioned not to include a time frame in the voting to join. Should you vote to join without a time frame, you would be a member, and it would sort of be at will. If you chose every year to pay the fee to join, you would stay a member, and then it would be as the city desires. If you put a time frame into your language to join, you would have to do it every time that time frame expires. So if you say fiscal year 20, then when fiscal year 2021 came around.
That, I understand. Again, if you could check with the law department, I really think language or no language needs to come from the mayor. Okay. And we understand from the explanation this evening, the $5,000 is the first annual fee. Each year will be subject to an appropriation in your budget. Not, for whatever reason, the city council decided it was time to get out of the program. It could be a budget cut, or a mayor may cut it in the future years. But I understand, we wouldn't, our vote would be, depending what happens this evening, more important, tomorrow evening, will be accordingly to both the transfer, which would essentially acknowledge the city council is voting in favor of the city joining the Pioneer Valley program, and Councilor Bartley's order not only been complied with, but we can formulate any motion with that is necessary. But please just double check with the law department to make sure, because I think you're going to need the mayor, something to do with, with the mayor signing off formally, although I think he already has with the appropriation transfer. Any other discussion?
I make a motion that the order's been complied with.
Motion made second at item number
It's a transfer, right?
7 has been complied with.
Okay.
That's Councilor Bartley's order, and we will check any language as necessary for the motion tomorrow evening. And item number 6, that the transfer signed off already by the mayor of $5,000 from sanitarian, which was Sean's position, now vacant, be transferred to professional health services,
Mr.
which
Chair?
is where the money would come out for this program. Counselor Bartley.
It's just, I don't want it to be about semantics, but it just, so the order says the city because this is from Sean, the city considered joining this district okay? So it's not like the order's been complied with. We're either gonna take a vote to join it or not. So the vote should be,
Take out
the vote should be up or down whether to join it. I heard what the chairman said, and we'll get appropriate language if necessary from the law department relative tomorrow, but the vote, it's not an order to be complied with. It's a vote to join this district or a vote not to join the district. So I think that ought to be the motion, and that ought to be what's in front of us tomorrow.
Fair enough. I have no problem with that. The point I'm just trying to make, though, is I still think even though the mayor signed off on the appropriation, by adopting the appropriation, we're agreeing with the mayor to spend the $5,000 on the program. I have no problem with what Councilor Bartley just said. I just wanted to cover all bases.
Well, the motion could be, to join the joint district pending clarification from the law department.
That's fine. That's a good suggestion. So if that's okay with the committee, can we amend that and make that recommendation on item number 7? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And item number 6 is that we recommend the city council approve the transfer for the purpose of joining. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Dr. Sean, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next part of the agenda is the Mike McManus agenda. Mike is going to do this real quick. I know it begins with item number 8, item number 9, item number 10, item number 11.
Can we do any of these as a package, Mike?
Item number 12, I think so. But we have separate questions for each of them. So it's 8 through 12.
Take up as a package?
Motion made, second to take up as a package. All those in favor? Any opposed? Our city auditor, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm going to re-mention it because a couple people have joined us, has been working diligent over the last month and a half with all department heads on shoring up deficiencies and looking to finalize, and this is typical every June, the current fiscal year budget to make sure that there's nothing that has to be adjusted next year so we can close the books out. Right, Tanya? That's part of it anyways. So Mike, in his due diligence, has submitted a number of transfers. I'll stop there and let me read them real quick and then ask Mike to explain each one of them. Again, as always, we need to know why there's a surplus, where the money's coming from, and why it's going to where it's proposed to go through. The first one is a total of $86,565.35. That's coming from broken down construction supervisor, heavy motor equipment operator, foreman, automotive, motor equipment repair, parking control officer, and park maintenance man. And to make up that, it is all going into snow removal overtime and snow removal services. Snow removal overtime is $74,657.39. Snow removal services, $11,907.96. Item number 9 is overtime. One overtime account, $1,300, broken down to $550, $750 into a second overtime account. Item number 10 is $13,475. This is from recycling overtime to forester overtime, building maintenance, laborer overtime, motor equipment maintenance overtime, heavy equipment operator. I don't understand this. You have to explain that one, Mike. And then item number 11 is $45,032 from motor equipment repairman to heavy motor equipment operator. Item number 12 is $7,923. This is from construction supervisor to senior civil engineer. They are off the table for discussion. Mike, can you lead us through this and make sense out of this?
I'll do my best.
Yeah.
So item number 8, this is an attempt to close the budget for our snow overtime. from this year. So we did go over budget on snow removal overtime, that's DPW services, and then snow removal services, this is our outside contractors. So we're total of $86,565 and change over budget with snow removal services. So I looked within DPW's budget to try to find the money. And we have these items up above. So construction supervisor, this was a position that was filled mostly throughout the year, but a few months ago, the person left DPW, so that is the budget remaining in that line item. Heavy motor equipment operator, this is in highways and bridges. So this is a combination of people on workman's comp, and at that time they don't hit this line item, so the budget stays in this line, or someone who left DPW, and then there's a lag between when the person leaves and when we can rehire.
How many workman's comp we have? Rough.
It varies. Right now there's 2, but it varies throughout the year.
Thank you.
The foreman automotive, this person was out for, this is one of the supervisors, he was out for a while getting his knee repaired. The motor equipment repair.
Mike, he didn't have sick time?
They
You go
do
on
have sick time. This accident happened at work.
Workman's comp?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The motor equipment repair for $31,300. This in conjunction with with item 11. It's the same line. I'm not sure if you remember, but last fiscal year when we were doing the budget hearing, there was a bust in DPW's budget where I accounted for 2 people in the automotive as motor equipment repairmen. It should have been in the refuse as the heavy motor equipment operators. So their dollars were in that budget. They should have been in another budget. At the time, we had called it a Scribner's error, and I remember being told that later on in the fiscal year, we would make the transfer to make the budgets sound. But we don't need to take all of that money because there was times where we didn't have people on the refuse. So we can take $31,300 from motor equipment repair. Parking control officer, Dan was out for a period of time this year. That's where that $13,000. And then the parks maintenance man, there was someone who left, and this is the time it took to hire.
Dan was out with no pay?
He was on workman's comp.
Workman's comp, okay. And workman's comp he's getting workman's comp, comes out of a different line item in the city budget.
Correct.
Okay. And just on motor equipment operator, just so I know, I get it, I remember, but what's the total in the account? Because there's 45,032 coming out, and this is 31,300.
So it was 80, I think 85,000
Okay, so
over.
there's enough, and Tanya's already signed off on this, that there's enough to cover it, but I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we weren't double dipping. Can we just let Mike finish, and we'll get questions, or do we want to go at this one at a time?
One at a time.
One at a time.
All right, any questions on item number 8?
Yep.
Counselor Sullivan?
Mike, the construction supervisor, have we refilled that position yet, or are we still advertising?
It's currently open. We haven't started advertising yet.
Okay. And what qualifications does a person need for that position?
Definitely construction-related experience for typical highway type work. We're looking for someone who is a project management certified.
Okay, why did the person leave
you found a better job on the private side.
What are the chances of finding somebody this year at 60 grand? Okay.
I don't know. The only thing we can do is advertise for the
Advertise.
position and see if we get anybody.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor
And
Murphy?
I do think we would have to advertise
Yep.
for that, yeah.
Right now, there's nothing posted?
Correct.
Hey, Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, Mike, just the park maintenance man, what department is that from?
That is from the Parks Department.
Which is under the DPW.
Copy.
And-
So that's Department of Recreation? Or Department of Parks, okay, there we go.
Page 43.
Page 43, Mike, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just a little, just for people at home, we have two sets of 5-digit numbers, and we're supposed to figure this out on our own when we come in here, once a week and try to decipher this stuff. It doesn't make it super user-friendly. 51109, park maintenance men. Okay. All right. Mike, is there a reason why we didn't ask the mayor for a transfer from the stabilization fund to pay for overtime for this? Because that is typically what happens instead of this series of things. Paying overtime out of stabilization is kind of a well-worn path and a tradition that we've, I think, generally accepted as being a reasonable procurement from that fund. So why don't we do that?
So
The overtime, right?
What's that?
Emergency overtime.
Yeah, but it's overtime though. It's a pay of snow removal. We've done it before.
So, I mean, I'd seen several city council meetings where people were looking for transfers, and it seemed like the question from the body was, can you take care of this within your own budget? So instead of looking outside, I sat down and looked at all of our overruns and was trying to find places within the DPW budget where we could make the DPW budget whole.
Okay, so when you, in the budget hearings, did you suggest any of these line items to be cut, Mike?
No.
And,
So a lot of this time came from people who were on workman's comp, where they weren't impacting the city's budget, which I really can't forecast in any given year how much time people will be off on comp. And then also when someone left the department, and it would be money that wasn't spent while their position was being filled. So all of these positions are needed in order to have an efficient and effective DPW operation.
The motor equipment repair, 51102, so how many employees are there under that object code today?
(51102), there are 2.
So there's 2 in place now?
Correct. That's where the Scribner's error was. There was an extra 2 employees added here, and they were taken away from the refuse. So if you go to refuse collection, on the next page, on page 35, on line 51102, we currently have 9.
Okay. So they were. All right, say that again, Mike. So we had.
So in automotive and equipment maintenance, page 34, Object code 51102, there's only 2 employees. In the budget, we had 4, so we had 2 additional employees, and we carried 2 additional employees in the salary. If we go to page 35, object code 51102, in the budget, we have 7 employees, but in reality, there's 9. And the budget that was carried was for 7 employees.
Now I see it. No, okay, it was just tough to follow the first time through, but I can see the numbers now. So that's why okay, that's why that line went way down. The other line at page 35 went up because of the Scribner's error.
Correct. And when you look at next year's proposed budget, we fixed the numbers, but what you're going to see is in the in the budgeted for the previous year is backwards.
Previous year was 176,755. Current year proposed would be 100,340.
I do see it now. And how many contractors are we talking about that these are vendors, Mike?
For the snow removal services, so this, it's not only the snow plow drivers, but it's also haulers when we get into snow removal. The number varies per storm event. It could be anywhere from 3 to 20. It also includes the budget for sand and salt and the magnesium chloride brine that's used in the community college area.
All right. What do we have? I'm sorry, I missed it. What do we have budget for snow removal this year?
The proposed budget is the same as last year's. And my understanding with state law is that if you level fund snow removal, you're allowed the benefit of deficit spending.
Deficit spending.
But if you were to cut the snow removal, then I would have to come before you a lot more to seek additional appropriations for that fiscal year.
And if the budget was increased to reflect reality?
It would be I could still deficit spend.
You could still deficit spend.
But it would affect the bottom line, right? For the budget. And then the following fiscal year, it would be at that elevated budget. So this year, this fiscal year, we spent less than we did the previous few fiscal years.
Thank you.
But we spent more on snow removal overtime. Overall, we spent less. We did more in-house than with outside contractors this year compared to last.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, so have the overtime for snow removal, they've already been paid for that?
They have, yes.
Okay, so, and the snow removal services have also been paid?
They have, yes.
So if we didn't do this transfer, then how does that end up working out?
So if we didn't do this transfer, as it is right now, these 2 budgets would still be in deficit at the end of the year.
Because of snow removal, that's okay?
I don't think
Yes.
it's okay.
Yes, okay.
It has to be rectified, but
Has to be
it still
rectified.
takes a vote by us either now
Right.
or next year, but you can do it. There's only 2 areas you can do that in the entire budget, and emergency snow removal is one.
Okay. And then the other question, and it may go to Tanya as well, so your people on workers' comp, they're getting paid, I'm assuming, out of the workers' comp account?
Correct.
And which was 300,000 last year, and the year before that, in FY17 was 326,000 spent, and we're halfway through this past year, we were 187. So I'm assuming, Tanya, that we spent more than 300,000 on workers' comp, number one, and number two, if you have several employees on workers' comp, what do you do to provide the efficient service that's needed?
So if we have people who are out on workman's comp, depending on the severity of their injury, if they are available for light duty, we have them come in and do light duty. There's certain functions in DPW that don't require the same level of mobility as other functions, and we try to maximize that as much as possible to keep people off comp. And the other thing it does is it allows us to reallocate people who are mobile into other positions.
So you kind of move people around.
Yeah.
In terms of it. But if you didn't have, if they were unable to work and they're total workers' comp without being able to do any light duty, then how do you, let's say you have 4 or 5 people out. I know you said there were 2 in one area, and I think you said there was 1 or 2 in another area. So how do you?
So when these guys go out on workman's comp, it generally isn't for an extended period of time. Could be for a few days. It could be for a week. Let's take a hypothetical situation where somebody were to get injured on refuse. They would go to the work connection. The work connection could possibly give them a note that they're on workman's comp for the next 2 days. After those 2 days, they go back to the work connection, they get reevaluated, and then they're released to come back to work. So a lot of the comp isn't prolonged periods of.
So a lot of you, like I twisted my back or something like that. I'm not trying to diminish the workers' comp, but it sounds like it's, you know, I'm doing trash removal, I'm throwing it, and I strain my back or something like that.
Yeah. So if you tweak your back throwing trash, you might go to the work connection. They would evaluate you, and they would give you restrictions where you shouldn't lift more than 20 pounds. So if that's your restriction, that you can't lift more than 20 pounds, you certainly don't want to be assigned to trash. You can't perform that work, but you can perform work at let's say at the yard waste pile, where you're essentially monitoring a pile and checking people as they come in and telling them where to dispose of their leaves. The same thing with the bays that we have at DPW, where people come to throw away construction debris and whatnot.
Okay, and could I just ask Tanya, where we are with workers' comp, Tanya? Do we have money left in that account?
Tanya?
For workers' comp, I believe, and Hector's here and he can tell me, I believe you just did a transfer into that account to cover some of the workman's comp from money you had in another one of your benefit accounts, so.
We did. I don't have those exact figures right now, but just for your, everyone's knowledge, with regard to speaking about DPW, they don't have their own separate workers' comp account. So the line item is under my budget and it covers the entire city.
And is that the 300? Is that
Yeah.
the 300,000?
And oftentimes we have to put more in there because, again, we're considering every employee. So we're talking police, fire, DPW, city employees.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Committee, you want to vote on item number 8 or go on to item number 9?
Vote on that, maybe. Vote on that?
Motion?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the transfer?
Second.
Motion made second to adopt, approve the transfer. If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 9.
Item number 9, this transfer was actually incorporated into item 10 and item 10, it didn't transcribe well.
How about you explain item 10 and then we can
Okay.
deny 9 and go on to 10.
So item number 10 is a transfer from the refuse motor equipment operator recycling position and the DPW administration overtime account for, I have $14,775 on my form. And that goes to a bunch of different categories where we had a union contract get approved, at the beginning of the year, which caused salary increases to come in. And there's a handful of budgets that need another $200, $50 to cover for the end of the fiscal year. So those, so Forrester, item 51101, that item is short $225. The overtime for the Forrester, item 51300, is short $1,500. Building maintenance man, which is in the city property budget, item 51103 is short $50. The laborer in the city property, item 51104, is short $50. The city property overtime budget, item 51300, would be short, I'm estimating $6,000. The highways and bridges overtime, this is regular overtime, not snow overtime, item 51300, I'm estimating will be short about $200. The motor equipment maintenance man in the automotive department, item 51103, will be short $50. The refuse overtime, item 51300, will be short $5,300 is what I estimated through the end of the fiscal year. And then in the parks department, there's the heavy motor equipment operator, item 51106, which is short $50. The park maintenance craftsman, item 51110, will be short $50. The parks overtime, item 51300, will be short, I estimate, $550. And then the War Memorial Commission overtime, item 51300, I'm estimating will be short $750 at the end of the year.
I'm going to ask Councilor Murphy's question on the overtime, and then ask, how do you know it's going to be short $50 in each of these items?
Oh, it's
or why?
Well, it's not exactly $50, but I'm looking at what they're getting paid, what was in the budget, and projecting to the end of the fiscal year, and it was going to be short, I don't know, $40 or something. So I just put 50 in to cover it.
How?
Short, yeah.
It's, I mean,
So
I don't
the-
want to spend a lot of time on $50 on each of these, but I don't get it.
So you can just, what he's saying is he's projecting to the end of the year based on his
We
expense.
have a budget that's for 12 months for each of these line items, each of these positions. We know their salary,
Correct.
okay? So the salary doesn't change. How do you become $50 short?
Sometimes the salary does change, and $50
Salary doesn't change unless you have an appropriation transfer adopted by the city council
could
in
have been not
another year.
budgeted appropriately to begin with, just by the $50. I wasn't there, but I mean, it can happen. No,
Okay,
but-
new sheriff.
No. I mean, it definitely could happen. I mean, you run through so many figures. How many budgets is he doing? I mean, you have to consider every single pay line, every single different union contract, every single position that he's dealing with, and that's a lot. So $50 is not a lot.
So you're telling us you'll be here next year, this will not happen
I
again?
can't say that.
So the
Well,
DPW
I
Laborers
also-
Union, the UFCW, they've finally agreed to a union contract this fiscal year, early on in this fiscal year. And
But
that-
did that contract come to us?
Yeah,
Because that contract would have been subject to an appropriation, which in order for the contract to be valid, we have to vote on the appropriation.
I know the contract came to you because there was issues with their raises and whatnot. I know
What position is this? I'm sorry.
these are all the DPW labor positions.
So you did have certain positions that did change steps within the current, you had an MOA. I think Gina might have handled that too.
That was for the DPW supervisors.
Okay, that's what I could remember for the different ones.
I'm confident you got a handle on these deficiencies, and that's fine. And I think the explanation is fair enough for the amount of money that's here. But Mike, the overtime monies, they're a little bit more significant. And Councilor Murphy's question, to snow removal was, you can do that with snow removal. But with this type of overtime, if it's not there, you're not supposed to spend it. Is this money that's already been spent?
This has been spent, yes.
You follow?
I do follow what you're saying,
Okay.
and
don't have to
an
say
oversight
anymore.
on my part, not keeping track of the overtime budgets.
That answers my question. I'm fine with that. I take your question?
Respectfully, you did, but it's okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion. On item number 9, we can give leave, we can deny.
Boy, the 9 you need to incorporate, because you said you needed 14,770, right?
No, the 9 is superseded by 10.
So get rid of 9.
Get rid of 9.
All right, so 9 is motion to deny.
Second.
Motion to deny. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item number 10.
Number 10, you said 13,475 is the number? I thought you gave a different number.
He did.
14,775.
That's why you
Yeah.
did both. So if you took 9 and 10,
Oh,
yeah,
crap.
that'd be your number.
Tanya, are you following this?
You're correct.
So I'm gonna, motion to reconsider 9.
Reconsider item number 9. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Here's my question with 9. If approved, does it go into the right line item at like 10 to fill out the obligation?
It does.
So motion would be to approve 9 and 10.
Second.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Motion on item number 9 and 10 together. We already voted to vote as a package to approve both of these items, which will total the number that our DPW superintendent gave us with explanations of where it's coming from, why, and where it's going to, why. Fair enough?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Councilor Murphy?
And just going back to your question.
Yes.
So in this case, if we spent this for overtime and we hadn't made the transfer, then what happens?
It'd be a negative item. In the whole, yeah.
Well, if we, you can't get the money back. So one way or the other, we're gonna have to rectify it. Our superintendent gave us a reasonable explanation. So, it's late coming to us, and I'm okay with that, and I'm willing to vote on it to rectify the budget. As I said, this is the end of the year. The $50,
So can I just ask?
I don't get. But
One-
the overtime I do get, and I'm counting on the superintendent that we won't be doing this next year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but do you know when the overtime took place, Mike?
It took place throughout the year. So it would be I'll take responsibility for not reviewing the labor budgets regularly and promptly to see that our overtime was going in the red.
Okay.
I mean, if we want to talk about the overtime and what generally happens during those overtimes, we can.
Yeah, and again, I just agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that, I mean, it's obviously, and I know he's got a lot of different line items and he's got a lot of different sub-departments, if you will, so I appreciate the intensity of that, but, I think we do have to get a better handle so that whatever department it is doesn't spend money and then come in and say, I spent it, so you really need to make this transfer.
On the motion.
I agree. Michael agrees.
I agree.
Okay. And a long time ago, we didn't just have the superintendent of DPW and the city engineer. We also had a assistant superintendent of DPW and a working business foreman underneath them. And, you know, one or the other ways, you know, the budget was a lot more accounted for. A hands-on superintendent of DPW, as Mr. McManus is, I think is an explanation enough for me as to why these things can happen. The $50 I don't get. The overtime I do.
Me too.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Mike, we're going on to 11, which is the $45,032. Is this one you already told us about?
Yes, this is
Okay,
the,
$45,032 from motor equipment repairman, that's the Scribner's era,
correct.
and going into heavy motor equipment operator. And this would have been, this is where it should have been in the first place, is what you're telling us?
Correct.
And we did discuss that, because I have my notes in last year's budget, last year. Is there any further discussion from the committee or from members? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made, second to
Second.
approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to item number 12.
Motion to take up item number 12 off the table for discussion.
$7,923 from construction supervisor to senior civil engineer. All those in favor? Any opposed? Mike, can you run through this one for us, please?
Sure, so this was, construction supervisor was a new position that was created this fiscal year. And there was a series of promotions that happened within the engineering department with this position. There was somebody, and there was a lag in time between when the person could vacate their old position and move into the new position because of union agreements and acceptance of that new construction supervisor position. The senior civil engineer position was funded last year. There was somebody in that position. That position was not funded this fiscal year. The person who is in that position moved to the construction inspector position, but there were a few weeks at the beginning of the fiscal year where they were being paid out of the senior civil engineer line item.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, I guess we're back to that same one. How long ago did this person leave, the construction supervisor?
3 months, including June, say all of June, it'd be 3 months.
Okay. And we went, this was a brand-new position we never had before?
Correct. This is the supervisor for DPW construction crews. So the construction inspector is somebody who inspects work done by contractors hired by the city. This would be somebody who would supervise our own construction crews.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve it.
Motion made, second to approve. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Michael, I believe that's it. Tanya, there's no other money coming out of Michael's budget tonight, is there? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming down. Item number 13, and if we could take up, well, let's just do 13. It's a free cash, motion made, second to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor, any opposed? The free cash transfer of $74,109 and $14,800 from floating clerk treasurer to litigation. Motion is take up for discussion. I think everybody's in favor. Gina, can you come in, or, you know, you can do it right there, I guess. Hector and Gina, if you want to explain what's going on in the best detail you can, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, part of this money is the $68,000 attorney's fees from the case that was recently settled, and the money, the appropriation was recently approved at the last council meeting, if you recall.
The schools.
School.
The big one.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
I don't think that's not this one.
It's not.
Okay? That is coming in tomorrow evening. It's on the agenda. We can't discuss it tonight because we don't have it on this agenda. Tanya, but go ahead, what are you gonna say? And the reason I wanna stop is because this is going into litigation. You don't pay attorney's fees out of litigation.
I was just gonna say that there is actually, that's, the special counsel is the litigation, and that's who they do pay the attorney's fees out of. But what I did was, and I had a conversation with Crystal, I had put the two together, and I should have actually separated them. So what I did is, for the next council meeting, I actually created two separate ones, two separate council orders, one for the 68 that was previously sent in, because that money was no longer in one of the treasurer's accounts. And then I did a second one for a second settlement case, so that way you can vote on them separate. Does that make sense? So together, they come up to 74,109, but they're actually two separate. One was already before council for 68, and then this is a new one, actually, for the 20, it's 2909. So there's two separate ones. So that was my, I put them together, and I should not have done that.
And before we vote on this, we're going to be able to brief on this so we know what we're voting on?
I guess that would be up to the.
Well, I don't wanna.
Talk now, so.
I'm already in a little bit of trouble as it is. But tomorrow night, item 15 is $68,000 from free cash into professional services special counsel. Now, we're not gonna, you're telling me that that's what this order would have been about?
Yes.
Okay, so we can talk about this order.
That's fine.
And you're gonna give us a new order tomorrow evening so we can deny this order?
Yes.
And then tomorrow evening,
There's correct ones in there.
we would use the free cash for the 68,000. So,
You can vote on them separately.
okay. We've already been informed during the budget, it was during the budget hearings, that the original vote we took, the treasurer identified money that was not available. Not available in the form of where we could use it as a transfer. And that
Correct.
was the money that we had a lot of questions about from all kinds of city councilors.
Rightly so, and in the end, it turned out that you were right.
That would be Counselor Bartley, Counselor Bacon, myself, and everybody that asked questions that night.
Absolutely, yes.
We love saying it when you say we're right, don't we, David?
Give yourself a little
No?
pat.
Now, to keep this for the open meeting law, the item here, Gina, the litigation is more than just the $68,000. So what else you paying?
There's a remainder of $20,900.
And that's to pay for what?
That's to pay for a recent settlement for an MCAD case involving two current city employees.
$20,000,
$900.
and that is a settlement going to a former city employee?
No, they're both current city employees.
Both current city employees.
That is correct.
And Hector, that's why you're here? Or I know you're here for a lot of other reasons with insurance,
I
but.
was here to be support.
Well, there
But
was
throughout
a-
the whole process, Gina and I worked on this together. So in the event that there were any questions, we felt that both of us should be present.
It was a mediated settlement that what took place at MCAD, and it was based on their recommendations.
What excuse me, what department is this?
The Mass Commission of Discrimination.
And no, what department are the employees in?
Oh, the city employees, this-
Would it be necessary to release that information at
Yes.
the current time?
Taxpayers' money.
Well,
I will say that this is a case that had a lot of media attention. I don't know if it's a big secret who the two employees are.
Well, it's not to us, but maybe the people at home would like to know.
I don't know who it is.
Okay.
Before we proceed, I would just like to ask and let you guys know that throughout the negotiating process with this matter, with the MCAT, it was explained that everything should be kept as confidential as possible. And I understand that maybe here it may not seem that way, but we just want to make sure that we're not opening ourselves to any additional liability by disclosing information that we should not.
There was an agreement that was signed with opposing counsel and the Mass Commission of Discrimination saying that everything would be kept confidential, the terms, that is.
Okay, let me say this first. This appropriation is in front of us. It needs our approval. Those terms at MCDA in the litigation, I believe, are binding because they were negotiated with the mayor through delegates, which would be
That is correct.
both Hector's position and the law department, whoever the mayor delegated. But the mayor agreed to it. So we're obligated to pay this. The city's obligated to pay this. City council is not obligated to vote on this because we may disagree with the source of money. And we need to know the particulars, which I know means executive session, which we cannot do this evening. Because I told Gina before, there is no disclaimer on this agenda that we might go into executive session that I know of.
Yes, it does. One or two items may require a committee to enter into executive session at this meeting.
Where are you looking?
The last page, Administrative Assistant Ryan Allen's notes.
Yeah, last page.
Okay. So we do have a disclaimer. So Hector, your observation is fair. And this is a dilemma for us because we don't, other than what we read in the newspaper, which quite frankly I don't go by, and other than the other employee of the city who the city is not representing here is not present this evening.
Correct.
And that employee has the right to do this on public record, if I understand the law the way I do. So how are we gonna resolve this? Counselor McGee.
Correct me if I'm wrong, just to the auditor, you said this order is wrong to begin with? Because you have two new orders for tomorrow?
Correct.
So this one is just leave to withdraw, or deny, motion is deny because they're wrong.
Okay.
And then tomorrow we can take it back up,
That's fine with me.
because really,
We can't vote on this.
and that
Well,
opens
we're
up.
gonna vote to deny.
We can deny it.
Yes, to deny it.
Because tomorrow this is.
If it's wrong, we
the two
should be
orders.
discussing it.
Well, no, you can discuss it because it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
The
But-
reason's not
Yeah.
wrong. The
But the
transfer is.
transfer is
wrong,
incorrect.
yeah. That's the same thing as item number one this evening, just has to be corrected.
Right.
No big deal. And then, well, we resolved the 9 and 10. All right, so what's the committee wish to do?
I think let's go along with the president. Make a motion to deny this one, and in doing so, we're going to take up the two ones from tomorrow night. Choose not, I guess.
But you can take them up or refer them to committee.
Refer them to committee, rather. I'm sorry.
Well, you can do either or. I'm just
Oh,
telling you the
well-
procedure. I mean, that's your
Just in
choice.
fairness, anything referred to committee tomorrow night dies.
Right.
Okay, just,
I-
let's be
I-
fair.
As former chair, these
This is
notices
tomorrow night's
have
the last
gone
meeting
out
of the
many
year.
times.
There are time constraints on this
Thank you.
particular.
What are the time constraints?
It really should be finalized by the end of the month.
Okay. So in all fairness, we're not going into executive session this evening. There's a possibility we go into executive session tomorrow evening? Possibility. I didn't say we are.
Is that on the agenda? I mean, we have this disclaimer here on this one, but I don't know if we have it on tomorrow's agenda.
Would it be fair to go, sorry if this is out of order, fair to go into executive session, discuss the details, and then tomorrow you guys are able to proceed with a vote? Is that-
But the other members won't have the benefit.
That's the other problem is there's 7 of us here this evening and you got 6 people not here. So I don't think we should do it this evening. But that is gonna cause a dilemma. There's no guarantee it's gonna be done tomorrow evening. We can refer it back to committee and The committee can do it, but it'll take a special meeting before July 1. And
I think Bacon had.
Councilor Reagan.
Oh, I was just going to encourage the committee to go into executive session to learn the details now, in the interest of gaining the information that's needed to make a informed recommendation to the council, which will be being put under pressure to take it up and act on it in the moment. And I think if a majority of the council's informed, it's better than having none of the council informed, which is what we have now.
I agree with that.
Doesn't say it there at all. Yes, it doesn't say it on our agenda. For tomorrow.
No, for tomorrow, yeah.
All right, pleasure of the committee.
Make a motion to go into executive session to get more information on this situation.
Second.
Having said that, can I just ask a question?
You may.
I'm just gonna go back to my original thought of, if I was a counselor that wasn't at this meeting, I'm not sure if I'd be too happy if I have to vote on something tomorrow night without having the same benefit that all of us have. And the second thing is, do we have to notify anybody that we're doing this? Not that we have to notify anybody, but in fairness to the two parties that are involved.
It's 3 parties.
3 parties. Just wondering.
In fairness, the third party, who is the person who was accused, we cannot discuss anything without that person having the right to be here.
That person was invited.
We have that in writing that she doesn't want to be here.
That person was invited and I believe didn't respond. But I do know firsthand that that party didn't really want to be here. It's very emotional.
I understand. I appreciate that too, Gene, I really do. I'm just...
So what are our options?
So, if I may?
Counselor McGee, please.
So the request from legal is free cash, floating clerk, litigation. Now, I know we have a disclaimer that talks about executive session, but I never got notice that we were potentially going into executive session to discuss a settlement. When did we get that?
I'll refer that to the law department.
I had emailed Councilman McGee last week when this was referred to committee, and I had, in the email that I labeled confidential, I gave a little bit of information about what the settlement was. And then I also emailed the Finance Committee President, Chairman, earlier, I believe at the end of last week, and I informed him of this settlement as well. And that I didn't know whether it would require executive session.
I have nothing. 2, every time legal has asked me for executive session, it's been a phone call and an email for request for executive session. I do not have either.
Well, I did email you. I don't know if, I can look through my emails and see if I specifically put executive session, but I did tell you that this was going to be on the agenda. Do you want me to look through my emails right now?
Yeah, I'd like to see it, because I don't have it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Gina, you don't have to look for mine. I do have it, and you and I have talked.
All right, so if you guys talk, that's fine.
No. Well, I'll stop there. Councilor Bacon.
I sent it to you on May 30th. I did mention the words executive session.
Councilor Reagan.
I just, on the point of people being here in attendance, all the counselors have the opportunity to be here if they so choose.
I agree. I agree with that. And Gina is right. I'll verify it with our administrative assistant, but I believe the treasurer was invited. Because there's actually another item coming up that I think we need the treasurer. Next item. I did not about attendance, but I did have a conversation with the treasurer, which is a whole different thing. And the law I'm referring to, Hector, do you understand that? I get this, and this happened with the Peck School and the teachers that were accused. And the city has to, sometimes cannot represent both sides of a party when both sides are city employees. But the city employees have a right to come to any public meetings before we can have a discussion, which includes executive session. Executive session doesn't say executive session forever. I'll stop there because I know the agreement says it does stay executive session forever, and we've done this before. But with the MCDA with the, the confidentiality clause. But it still is important that at some point the attempt is made to inform the city council. So I don't know. I'm looking for help.
Well, I don't know if this is any different from the past, but is there any opportunity to act outside of that process if the individual is an elected official? Don't they represent themselves in a capacity as opposed to a regular city employee?
No.
Okay.
We're elected officials. Of course, you guys don't care about us. You probably wouldn't represent us.
Well, no, we have other elected officials that.
Hector, I'm kidding.
It really, the case involves the city, though. I mean, it wasn't against the individual. The case was against the city.
Well,
So,
because they're a department head of the city.
Well, I don't want to read quotes and headlines and newspaper articles to make a decision. A long time ago, I decided that's not the way to do business here. But we all know that this was aired out in a newspaper quite, unfortunately, quite in detail. And I think a lot of us know there's another side to the story that did not come out in the newspaper in detail. And if this is a litigation that is to protect the city from a possible bigger settlement without the person being accused even admitting that they're wrong or choosing, well, I can't speak for that, but it's a dilemma.
Motion was to go in executive session, or seconded.
Motion made, second, go into executive session that for the purpose of, let me do it, for the purpose of discussing litigation settlement, a pending litigation against the city with the possibility of a settlement. That is covered under the motion to allow a body to go into executive session. It is covered under the agenda because we do have a disclaimer on the agenda with a possibility. It doesn't cover, we're not sure if it covers the department head being notified that they had a right to be here if they were going to discuss the department head, just to let you know. So on a motion, it's an individual roll call vote. Councilor Leahy.
Well, can you, on that, what you just said, if we have to invite somebody, and you said you're not sure in that, can that turn around and now?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm concerned about it. I'm really concerned about it.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
We're concerned about a city employee. Maybe all three city employees have a right to hear any discussion about what took place. If a public discussion, even executive session, because eventually that could become public, is going to take place.
both parties involved know the terms of this agreement. So if what we're going to discuss is the agreement, they're already aware of it.
I don't doubt that. And I don't doubt the third party involved knows the terms
I
of the
don't know who
agreement.
the third party involved is.
Well, who did they accuse?
There's an individual accusing another individual.
Okay.
If I may, throughout this entire process, it has been actually before Gina's time when this began, and therefore, so I've been a part of this since the beginning. But moving forward, both myself partnering with previous solicitors, and then moving forward with Gina going forward, have spoken on behalf of this employee that you guys are discussing. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yes, but it's not resolving our dilemma immediately, okay? We haven't spoken in a public session with the employee. If we're about to do that, we're supposed to notify that employee they have a right to be here.
Okay. My second thought is last week we were anticipating to be able to have this. Was it last week or the week prior to have this discussion, and we did not. So if we were to invite that particular employee to a session and then you guys don't discuss it, do we have to re-invite with the anticipation that the topic is going to be discussed at a future meeting?
She said she wasn't.
I mean, one individual knew that this was going to be discussed tonight and chose not to appear.
Joe, to alleviate the conflict, there is a meeting for the budget on the 25th. We could change the agenda to add a special session or executive session I'm making stuff up, 6. Start the budget at 6:30. At least now we followed that formality, and in that way,
I think it's a lot
we cover
better.
ourselves.
I think it's cleaner,
I appreciate what you're both saying, but I think and this may be the first time you've seen this with us, okay? And I'll take some blame too, because Gene, I did get your email, but I misread this order, the litigation part, and then not the attorney's part, but the litigation part. And it's not you've done your role correctly, the law department's done their role correctly. I know discussions were had with all the people involved, but in order for us to hear that, ask questions and discuss it, we have to notify them they can be present. And the other dilemma is the confidentiality has already been made with the mass discrimination, which I've seen this once before, where we have no say over that, but we do have a say over the appropriation, and we do want to hear what your discussions were and why the settlement was reached. So
That was part of the settlement, that this would be discussed
Yes.
during appropriation discussion. They are aware of that.
I appreciate that too, but unless we do our job and say to at least, if not 3 people, to 2 people, you have a right to be here. If they choose not to be here, it's fine. And just inviting them to be here was not enough. We had to tell them we were discussing this. So, Counselor Sullivan?
I don't think we have to discuss it. I think we'd just like to be informed about it. The arbitration, the decision's been reached. We just don't know what it is, what the details are. We'd just like to be informed of the details. There's nothing we can do, vote to change it. I don't see why we can't just receive information in executive session.
I have no problem revealing and answering all your questions in executive session.
It's not,
You guys do what you want. I will not go into executive session under those circumstances. I'll vote no, and I will not attend, because I'm not going to violate the law. Counselor Leahy, on the motion.
I think Councilor Bartley had his hand up.
Counselor Bartley, in discussion.
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna, I just wanted a discussion. I was gonna make a point of order right there too, because I don't know if the, not to be mean, but the chair's making a comment, before others are voting, and so that was a little off-putting. I would just say.
We're having a discussion. I'm just
No,
having a discussion.
I'm not
Don't
being-
start there.
I'm not being mean, but.
You're getting close, though.
Well, you're the chairman.
Yeah, and you just,
And
once
you-
again,
you
went to
called the
me as the
roll.
chairman.
You called the roll.
I was
roll
under
call.
discussion. I had every right in the world to say what I said.
You called the.
Mr. Bartley, you got the floor.
You called the roll call vote, and then you're making your vote.
And 3
known
times
before-
that roll call vote was interrupted for discussion, including you. Go ahead.
On a discussion, you're making your vote outside the roll call. So so you're influencing somebody else's vote on that one. So I think that's, and we've already had one executive session. We already voted no on it earlier this year. So your input's there. But on discussion, I would suggest to you not to go into executive session tonight, only because this is almost like a Keystone Cops type of a scenario because of this incompetent order, the way it's written, which started with an incompetent line item transfer for the litigation. So I'm not going to be nice. This is as sloppy, Mr. Chairman, as it gets. This is embarrassing. So we had a budget transfer, and the public should know this, for a $68,000 transfer when there's no money in the budget. That's how this started. Now we're combining this with some, Mr. Chairman, I don't know anything about this MCAD matter. I know nothing about it. I didn't read the paper. I'm totally clueless as to what this even entails. Furthermore, I heard what the president said. I would hope we would not have a executive session on the night of a budget hearing, which we know how long those generally go. I heard that as in terms of efficiency, but I'm just going to implore the department heads and the departments that are here to possibly, I could see us maybe entertaining as a budget transfer maybe on the 25th, and maybe have a meeting if the president wanted to, on the 27th, on the Thursday, to try to resolve this one issue. Maybe call a special meeting then. I just hope we don't have because I'm not even prepared to discuss this. I have no background on it. I mean, it's not for titillation. I don't care. But I just think that this is I just don't think this is appropriate at this point. So I hope we deny this tonight. I for one won't be a part of it. If you do pass it tonight, I'll step out, and I hope we can find another way, truthfully, to get our departments, starting with the mayor's office and the auditor's office and the law department and the treasurer's office, to get their act together in short order, i.e. by tomorrow, communicate it to the president and city council how it is that they want to proceed with this, figure out a way to calendar it and proceed accordingly. Because doing it like this is Keystone Cops times 10. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor. You can give leave to withdraw, whoever gave the motion, or you can...
I made the motion to go into executive session. I'll rescind that. Leave to withdraw that motion.
Motion has been given leave to withdraw. Is there further discussion on item number 13?
Motion is to deny it.
Motion made second to deny. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 14 is a transfer of $13,453.92 from land court to short-term debt. Motion to take off the table for discussion?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Tanya, this is going from land court. The city solicitor is here, and our city treasurer is now here to discuss why we have a surplus in land court. I mean, what is land court?
I'm actually going to withdraw both 14 and 15 because land court is now being handled by the solicitor's office, although it was being handled by Sandy's office, the treasurer. She does have extra money in land courts for land court filings for when they go to court, and it's the fees that they pay for the land court. So I did check with the solicitors, and I also checked with the treasurer's office, and I believe that's correct. The solicitors have taken over the land court filings. Is that correct? So that's why there's
That's
money.
correct, they did take it over.
So
What's the need in short-term debt? Because this is it.
this is it. The short-term debt was under budgeted, and it probably had to do with the bans, is my guess. I wasn't here for that. So we are short by 13,000, but I'm withdrawing that. in an effort, because that's something that can be explained, in an effort to cover our health insurance, which is why I'm actually want to withdraw both of these, because the state specifically said that we need to cover our health insurance deficit. I can definitely explain the short-term debt and why that was under budgeted, and I can also explain the property insurance, which I came in front of you before with an extra
Hi,
invoice.
Sandy. Short-term debt, you need money to finish the rest of the year?
Just the 13.
Okay. Please. City Treasurer,
Hey, hello. What happened was when we did the band last year, we miscalculated and the interest was a little higher than what we expected. So we need that money to pay the short-term debt.
$13,453.92.
That's correct.
And we cannot get this out of land court?
We can. There's money in land court. I don't know why we can't. I would approve the money to come from land court because I have enough money in there. As you know, when I came from my budget meeting, I gave Mr. Sullivan at least an additional $20,000. We have not used as much funds this year because we've had a lot of people that have come across and paid off their debts to make their taxes whole. So I haven't had to use Siddell and Siddell to file land court filings with them to do foreclosures. So
Just
we've
for the
done
record-
less this year.
And just for the record, you didn't give Mike Sullivan $20,000. You just
Well,
gave
no,
him the
I
right to
gave,
make-
I gave the city back $20,000, just for the record.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I mean, that was
But
gonna be a
Mike was the
headline
one that
tomorrow.
was begging me. I can't say no to Mike, you know?
Council Leahy.
It's, just so you need this, so I'm thinking we're gonna approve it. However, she's asking for it to be withdrawn, or denied, rather.
Actually, she's asking for, well, she really should leave the transfer as is. It should come from land court and to go into short term.
I can do that.
Can you do that?
So I make a motion to approve it?
Motion made and second to adopt. Is there further discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can explain tomorrow if someone asks, and I'm a little, what is a band?
The band is the short-term debts that we take out before we bond.
Okay, so if you, before you bond something, a band just means how
Yes,
long you need
like
short-term?
just for FYI,
I-
the auditor and I are working on doing the bands for the end of June, and it's about 9.4 because we have a lot of expenses. We can't finish, we cannot bond for something unless the project is completed.
Thank you. I just, for some reason,
Yeah.
I lost that in somewhere
I'm
in the
here
memory
for.
banks here. Counselor Sullivan.
Well, while I've got you here,
No,
Sandy,
Mike, you can't have any more money.
how much is left in the account?
That I couldn't tell you, but it will, whatever's left in the account will go back to the general.
I know that. Tanya, you can expect a call tomorrow on that line item,
I can even shoot you an email.
or shoot me an email?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Make a motion to take 16 off the table?
15, isn't it?
We haven't voted on 15
I'm
yet.
sorry.
I don't know what we're gonna do with that, yeah.
15 is pay health services, $26,000 from the Council on Aging account into property insurance. Motion to take off the table for discussion. Who handles property insurance?
Wasn't this
Handles the property insurance?
Yeah.
The property insurance is Procurement handles the insurance, the liability and the vehicle insurance.
Okay, and does procurement have a need for the rest of this year for $26,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was the difference in the amount of vehicles from the beginning of the year and the end of the year in the commercial vehicle insurance.
$26,000?
How did that change?
A lot of money.
Mr. Chairman.
I can
Tanya,
bring
can you, I'm looking for even the written explanation. is signed off by, who is?
I don't know, I'm looking for
I don't either. No, the head of the department, who's signing off for the,
Bill Rodriguez.
health service? Who's signing off for the council on aging?
Oh, that's it, she's Nabe Rodriguez, she's in charge.
The director.
Nabe?
So she had an
Nave.
open position, and the reason why I wanted to withdraw that particular one, is because it was for the wrong figure.
Okay,
She thought she, had an additional 26, but there was an outstanding transfer that hadn't been processed yet.
Chair will entertain a motion to deny.
Make a motion to deny.
Motion made, second to deny. All those, any other discussion? Counselor Bacon?
I'm all set.
I would like to know why it's $26,000 off.
Insurance.
I can definitely bring you the invoices that we paid that caused the overage to that account.
Well, I hope you didn't pay something that you didn't have money for.
Mr. Chairman,
Counselor Bacon?
what I wanted to know was how we could have increased the number of commercial vehicles without it coming through for something. Because how would we have more vehicles now than we had when we set the budget?
One, I know like 13,000 was a previous year's invoice that I came to council for, so that's part of it.
Part of this?
That's part of that, and then there's additional, which I'm happy to research the invoice and be able to tell you exactly what it
Okay.
is.
Okay,
I don't know offhand.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. McGee, are you, I know you, I still have questions, but
Well, it's
denying it.
denied, so that's fine.
Okay. Counselor Bartley?
I thank you. Tanya, I just want to, just so I can educate myself a little better, what we're doing, what we're considering and what we consider to do is take $26,000 from the Council on Aging under line 51202, which in my budget book, if I read it right, says health services provider. And I take it that's what, it just didn't write provider in here. And so that's on page 39 of the budget. And then for property insurance, Tanya, where is that in my budget?
Property insurance is towards the end. I can show you. It's with the, it's way in the end. If you wanna-
Yeah.
Liability and damage insurance, 57400.
Liability.
Property liability, you see it right there? That's the line that it goes under.
I do.
So, ouch. That Council on Aging, though, is actually, she had two nurses positions open that she just recently did fill one, but she had a opening almost all year. And now she's doing the hiring. I don't know if she was having a hard time filling those positions. My guess is yes. But as Counselor McGivern was saying, as we're going through and trying to balance everything, we're going to look at all of those pay lines with open positions and try to cover deficits within the budget.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Oh, Mr. Chair? I just had the floor for a second.
Counselor Bartley, go ahead.
And we can go back and forth, but I just want to ask a couple questions, just make a comment too. So the reason I don't like this, Mr. Chair, is because we should be doing this with free cash. Instead of combing through unfilled positions that we know that they're probably necessary for the Council on Aging. I mean, we all want to, as we just went through with the same situation with Mr. McManus's budget, because we have virtually no free cash. I mean, we don't even bother asking the finance chair at committee meetings anymore how much free cash is left, because we know it's paltry. And that's why I just say to my fellow city councilors, and I you know, when we make budget cuts, it's just because we know we're going to run into this at the end of every year. There's no way you can, you know, to the city auditor or anybody else, any department, they do their best. I mean, but a budget can't be, you know, in granite. We know that. Not a person in this room feels there has to be a grant. We know there has to be some flexibility. That's why we have this thing called free cash, which allows this. But instead of having free cash, where Mr. McManus took all those monies for overtime, took them out of line items. They started going back into free cash, so we could figure this stuff out more efficiently instead of scrambling from one department here and throwing it over there and paying property insurance. I mean, I know we'll make the same old motions we make every year, and the same counselors are gonna vote the same way. They always vote. Respect every one of you, you all know that. But they're gonna vote the same way they vote every time, which is to say, no. And we'll keep making raises, and we'll keep at it, and we'll say no, and we'll have this same discussion if we're reelected for next year. I wish we could just do it a little different, instead of being, it's not to be punitive or harsh. And I'm only going off on this tangent, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your patience, because I did watch a meeting last week relative to a whole entirely different issue, and counselors are going off on making a correlation to why they voted for the debt exclusion when we're talking about something having to do with a mental health and substance abuse facility at 11 Yale Street. I didn't even understand where that was going, but yet we're making a political speech on that. So I'm hopeful that we can sort of, and with the president's permission, to just focus on what we have to focus on next Tuesday, and then think about making measured, prudent cuts as necessary so that we can have the proper free cash balances in the coming fiscal year. And I truly think if we do that, without being punitive, being fair to every department across the board, I think we can get there, because I'm pretty confident in the work that this body's doing and the vast majority of the department heads in this city. Thank you.
Tanya, on the property insurance itself, we're denying this at your request, I guess for a couple of reasons, but property insurance or in any line item within the city budget itself, the department head, we talked about this earlier, with the exception of a couple things, snow removal being one, cannot spend money that is not in their budget.
Say that again?
They cannot, an invoice cannot be paid.
They should not, no.
If an auditor or mayor should know, but the mayor is going to depend upon the auditor and the department head, that there's enough money there or not. And when there's not enough money there to cover an invoice, that's when a transfer is supposed to come to us.
Understood.
Okay. Item number 16.
Make a motion to take item 16 off the table.
Motion made, second to take item 16 off the table. All those in favor? What's that?
I don't think
The motion was to deny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Denied.
I'll make a motion to take item 16 off the table.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is originally filed by Councilor Lisi and Councilor Brown Martinez at the assessor.
No, Joe, no.
16.
All right.
This is 16.
Well, I'm just going by what's in front of me.
Transfer of $79,000, 400.
I'm just going by the wrong one. $79,474.57 from free cash into health insurance. We have with us this evening our auditor. As noted in the prior meetings, including the budget hearing, there are deficiencies within our health insurance and dental insurance. If you look in the budget, I believe it's medical insurance, for a number of different reasons. And we have this request and several requests coming in tomorrow to shore up and to clear up some of these deficiencies that have occurred over a period of time. With us this evening is I believe, Quentin is, I tell myself I was not going to do that tonight, Quentin, and who is a member and chair of the Section 19 committee, if I'm correct. and our city auditor to discuss this. Now, there's a number of requests for transfers that are coming in tomorrow evening. Tanya, would you like to take the lead on this?
I will.
Quentin, you want to come, would you both like to come in and have a seat? Sandy, would you here for health insurance?
I can
Help out? Okay.
do here for another.
Hey, Quentin, you want to come in?
You're just covering this.
I should have green button.
Well, it's, there's, in
free
any
cash.
transfer, there's two parts of a transfer, where the money's coming from and where it's going. Where it's going, we only got to cover once. Where it's coming from is a different story. How about, Quentin, for us and for our listening audience, will you just explain the Section 19 committee to everybody? We are, being televised live, and some people understand, some people don't, but only the mayor can do health insurance in the city. And the mayor can delegate the responsibilities of that. In the past, we've had insurance brokers, we have insurance brokers currently, and more recently, which is probably 6 or 7 years, a Section 19 committee was created.
My name is Quentin Donahue. I am the chairman of the Public Employees Committee, the Section 19. We represent the labor interests of Holyoke's workers. There are representatives from each of the locals that have contracts with the city, and therefore we are the labor voice when it comes to negotiating and working with the city to provide the best quality at the most affordable price for health insurance and dental insurance.
And if I remember correctly, each union has a weighted vote according to membership.
According to membership, yes, that is true.
Thank you.
And I am the teacher, I'm the representative from the Holyoke Teachers Association.
Over how many years have we had?
The Section 19 committee has been part of this, I believe, for almost 9 years now, 9 or more years. It could be more. I'm one of the more senior members, but I've really been an active participant of this committee for the past 6 years.
And if I remember correctly, when our treasurer, John Lumber, and I think Sandy, you were working with them, and the federal government made a mandate that health insurance was to become part of W-2s. That created an accounting problem for the city, all cities, but for our municipality. And I believe at the time Brian Smith was the auditor, and a formula was worked on to rectify that. And one reason of explanation for the discrepancies in the city's contributions to the fund was even before Tanya, we had an auditor, and we had an acting auditor, so we've had a number of people change in these positions. John left the treasurer's office, Sandy subsequently got elected, and we've identified through the auditor's office now discrepancies within the fund. Tanya, you want to fill us in on the discrepancies?
The discrepancies with the medical insurance?
Yes.
So the medical insurance was under budgeted by over $1 million. So during the course of the year,
Wait, say what?
This is health insurance, it says.
health insurance.
Can you explain medical, health, and dental?
Medical and health are the same. It's called medical health insurance in the Munis system. They both have the same number. As I was typing it in,
But explain as to how it's listed in our budget is what we see.
if you go to your budget and you look at the insurance page, it is towards the end in the
It's page
benefits.
48?
Yeah, I think it is, actually. You'll see all the different benefits for employees. So the medical insurance is 19141519999. Did you find it? Fourth one down. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, Todd, is that?
No, I was just making sure because it's referring to health and then there's several down here for
I did
medical.
that.
I just
I
want to
was-
make sure we're not going outside the scope of talking. That's my whole point.
Gotcha. Anya?
You know. Excuse me?
No,
You
you're
good?
fine now. I just clarification for
Understood.
the record.
So it was under appropriated, I guess is the word you would use. So obviously, we need to pay for our employees' medical insurance. This is something that has been continuous through the years. It's something that has been brought up by the state along with many other deficiencies within our budget. So when you see all of your department heads coming together and trying to cover their deficits, it's because if we don't cover them, it doesn't count towards free cash. And if I understand it correctly, it would take a whole year to catch up because you're writing off the deficit. You don't get it in free cash, and it comes into the next year. Obviously, we need the money during this year. We want to cover our benefits so it doesn't impact our free cash, I believe Counselor Bartley was talking about. So you actually get a double whammy if you don't cover your own deficits because you have to cover your deficit, it doesn't go into your free cash, and then it takes a whole year to make it up. That's my understanding of it. So we want to cover as much deficit, especially this health insurance, because it's a huge liability to the city, and we need to cover that. We've not been covering it for years, so I hope that explains it to you. It was over $1 million, yes. They've been doing pretty steady transfers into this account, probably trying to cover the deficit. I know they had a forensic accountant come in, and they did straighten it out on the medical side. Now it's straightened out. So going forward, if it's budgeted appropriately, we should be fine, I would hope.
But you're talking about, Sandy, you want to come in? You're talking about next year's budget is.
Talking about for years it's been going on.
No, but what's fine is starting July 1.
Yep.
What we're trying to,
The process itself is now working appropriately. We know who's making contributions into the health insurance. There were some areas that once they changed the system, and I think Sandy can actually speak to this better than I can because she happened to be here when the forensic scientists, too much CSI, forensic accountants came in, so she might be able to speak a little bit more as to the process than I can.
and what we're talking about, Sandy, is the city is obligated, or agreed to, not obligated, but agreed to with the Section 19 committee to pay, I'm just gonna throw out a number, 50% of the premium of health insurance. And then there's an obligation, which I've never understood, about the deductions. And more recently, the deductions in Owen, Quentin, God, I just saw Owen on Sunday at Mass, so I'm gonna do this all evening. Sorry. The deduction amounts have been changed to get better premiums, and which is great when everybody's healthy.
Right.
But someone gets a high, very costly medication or a very costly medical bill, it can change a lot of things. Am I reading into this as part of what Tanya's telling us, where
Correct.
it hasn't been covered correctly?
Correct. What is happening with the city, and it's an internal thing, we collect the money from the employees at the appropriate percentages. And I think some of the insurance, it's like 34%, and the city picks up the rest. We pick up the bulk of the insurance. Sometimes, I don't think, before Tanya got here, they took into consideration the retirees. The retirement board does not pay their employer's portion because they're considered part of the city's retirement. So that has to be included in the budget when they look at what it's going to cost the city on the employer side, which the retirees are 50-50. So the city has to pick up 50% of that. We also have to pay on a monthly basis roughly $3,500 for our retirees that are still alive that did not pay into the Medicare program because they were exempt from Medicare when they were hired. So we have to pay that. That is also an employer's burden on the city. So sometimes I think when they're calculating the insurance, they don't look at the whole picture as what is the city's responsibility, and that's probably why we came up short this year.
Who does the calculations?
To be honest with you, I would think it would be between the mayor and section 19, but they might not take into consideration the employer's portion as opposed to basically to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Quentin, the section 19 meets to benefit the employees as opposed to the employer.
Yes.
So management comes and says, hey, this is what the city's going to allow you to have, which I think is approximately 8 million this year that we budgeted for on the city side. Now, we might fall short on that. I'm not sure.
9.5 that we
Yeah.
budgeted, but I believe I asked for a million more than that.
Yeah.
Health insurance is under the mayor.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Correct.
I should have asked my question differently. Rory Casey was the delegate of the mayor, and I think Rory is still involved.
Correct.
Although Rory is no longer an employee of the
Correct,
city.
but they took him on as a consultant because we didn't have somebody on the city side to represent the management part at section 19.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And section 19, I asked Quentin to do the explanation just so people could hear it. But we have accepted, and I think most city councilors will agree, section 19 is a good way to, it's not just cost, it's also employees need to have choice. It needs to meet their needs in terms of health insurance. And as we all know, health insurance is a budget buster under any circumstances, and the more you make sense of it from a cost point of view, I think everybody, appreciates what you go through.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add that we do take the fiscal situation of this city as employees, recognizing who pays us, and so at no point is it just a blind, we're not sharing your troubles as well, because your troubles are our troubles too. So as we approach this, just so the committee and the public can understand that as public employees, that we're fully cognizant of the financial situation of the city, and we work with the mayor's representative as the mayor's office chooses what to offer to us, and then from there they decide the plan, and they decide the carrier, and they propose the plans. So up until this current year, this incoming fiscal year, we've always had fully insured plans. And so this upcoming fiscal year, in order to save the city money, that we've entered into a different way of trying to cover city employees fully, providing for a higher deductible as the insurance plan that's being offered, that's being purchased from Health New England. However, the city, in order to try to keep costs down low, so the premium for the insurance from the Health New England is at approximately a flat rate as it is right now. However, the city has offered us health reimbursement accounts, which treat the high deductible plans as they are right at the levels that they are right now, with the city assuming the extra burden. Now, in their own calculations and in their own working numbers, and if Mr. Casey were here and/or if any of the brokers were here at the same time, they would do a much better job at explaining this. But for the employee, it remains at the same level of deductible in effect. But the plan that the city is purchasing have higher deductibles, but the city is then going to cover the difference from $1,001 to the new high deductible level. So I don't know if anyone has explained that to the committee, what has been offered this year. But as employees, we accepted that as a way to try to keep city costs down low, so that if the budgeted amount or the amount that the city has planned to cover for that difference between the $1,001 to $4,000 or $5,000, that they've already worked in their numbers, what they believe is, so that any number, in theory, if the number were, the city was planning for $1 million to cover that difference in the deductible amounts, then if there were any savings realized, say people are healthier, and only the number of people that will exceed that number would then be $800,000. The city would then realize a net savings. Correspondingly, if there is an excessive amount, then the city is also responsible for anything over that. But we as a committee have worked with the city in the city's best interest.
Thank you. Sandy, when employees' monies and city monies get put together, from a budget point of view, does it go into the same account?
Correct. It goes into, when the treasurer collects the city's, the employee side, it goes directly into a bank account, which is called employees withholding. And then when I pay the bill, after I balance it at the beginning of the month, then the money is then given, a warrant is given to the auditor, and then the auditor takes what is needed out of the employee side and then out of the city. And where we're running into the problem is the city is the one that's the shortfall.
What happens at the end of a fiscal year if there's a surplus in one of the accounts?
We go, yay.
Does it carry over?
We do.
I would love to see the city insurance have a surplus. Unfortunately, it's, no matter how you budget, again, you have a turnover in the school department, you have new hires, you have an increase in employees, you have an increase sometimes on the city side with police and fire. It really is, the Section 19 does their due diligence when they go into their meetings and work this out. It's just sometimes it happens, which is unfortunate. I don't think we've ever carried over health insurance. We might have done something in the past, I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know, the employee side is the employee side.
Right, and that balances.
City side, normally at the end of the year, it becomes,
yeah.
if it was a surplus, it becomes free cash.
Correct.
Unless you can encumber it. Questions? Councilor Murphy, then Councilor Tomlin.
So, first of all, Quentin, thank you. Haven't seen you for a while. How you doing?
Well, thank you very much.
Good. So, when this negotiation between the city and your bargaining group for insurance, so the city came to you and said, we're going to take the higher deductible, but we will pay the difference from what you had previously? Is that what you're saying?
Probably the better way, and I wish Mr. Casey were here to, because he is the mayor's representative. But the idea is that, let's see, best way to phrase it, from difference between a fully insured lower deductible plan, which is what we've had, to a higher deductible plan with a health reimbursement account is the difference. So for the net effect on the employee, it remains the same. Okay? And therefore premiums remain relatively flat. And so in that regard, the city rather than in a fully insured plan, which at one point we were discussing, the first bids that it came in were around 20% increases, and realizing that that's nothing that any of us could handle on either side. So the mayor's office, through the brokers, found a more creative way. From what we've been told, this is a relatively common way to try to keep health insurance costs low for private companies, but that this was a new idea for a municipality. So as a Section 19 committee, we felt that in order to benefit our employees and having to face a 20% increase on our side, even if we split the costs equally, it would still be, that's too much for any employee. So we agreed to see how this type of plan works. And if it is beneficial for both sides, if it's beneficial for the city, like I said in the past, it's beneficial for us.
Yeah, but does that take effect July 1st?
July 1st, when we transition from the current provider, Cigna, to the, going back to Health New England.
Okay. But the money that we're owing now goes back to Cigna, I want to assume. And it's several hundred thousand or more.
Well,
Misunderstood.
if I understand, I was going to say Alderman Murphy, but that's a long time ago. So
When
it's,
I was a
City
young
Mr. Counselor, if I understand your question, the financial transfer that's before you right now is to cover the current fiscal year, correct?
Correct.
So then it does not apply to the Health New England agreement yet.
So without the changes then?
Yes.
And so, I guess related to Tanya or Sandy, so we owe this substantial amount of money for the insurance coverage that we're paying for fiscal 19?
Yes. We've already paid, we've paid the June bill. We collect the money from the employees the month before to pay for the next month. So we have to pay the bill by June 1st.
Okay.
And that will, and we did that with Cigna, and that ends our 6/30/2019 fiscal year. And that's, again, I was watching this from home, and I did see where, we have spent money, but it's a necessity that we pay the bill. And unfortunately, we have a shortfall in that account on the employer's side, not on the employee's side,
Right.
on the employer's side.
So the employee side has already been paid, and you're looking at
Everything
paying
is
from the
paid, it's
employee
the
side.
city portion.
So is it because we had more employees, or is it because the rate changed mid-year?
No, I think it's because it's on the employer's side. I think it was when they set the budget last year, and that would be management, not Section 19, because basically when they have Section 19 meetings, management comes and says, here's what the city is going to pay for the employee's portion, work around it. It might not have taken into consideration, like I said before, the Medicare supplement for active retirees who retired before. Now everybody in the city pays Medicare because that law, I think it stopped in 19. You might know, Joe. 79, 80, something like that. So we're obligated, as long as the retirees are alive, we have to pay into the Medicare system. The other thing is the retirees, which is about 900 employees, or retirees. I shouldn't call them employees, they're retirees. They all have insurance. Retirement doesn't give us that portion and says, okay, there's $600 a month, we got to match that. They don't give it, that's on the city's dime. And I think there's where they might not have budgeted for it.
Okay.
And that's the shortfall.
I appreciate, that's a good explanation. I guess I'm looking at the fiscal 19 budget, and so in fiscal 18, we had $8,700,000, and I'm assuming the people that make this request are the people that are putting all the help, and they asked for 9.576, and the mayor gave them 9.4 million. So is that approximately the difference we're looking at?
Well, it
It's
could be that, a
176,000.
combination of when it went to the mayor and the mayor cut. I don't, I can't speak for the mayor and I can't speak for Rory, but to me, as the treasurer, I see the money coming in on the employee's side. I don't, and I've said it before, I don't handle the munis side. I don't know what is incurred in the budget. I just take care of paying the bill.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Tanya came in at a interesting time of her life.
So my last question is, I'm going to make the assumption this has not happened before.
I think it has happened when Mr. Lumbra came on. There was a shortfall then. And I can't speak for the former treasurer, other than when John came on board, between him and Brian, they figured out that there was going to be a shortfall, and they did come before the city council. And I'm thinking it was maybe 450 or 700,000 that they requested.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Drummond? Yeah.
Thank you. Just a couple brief comments and questions. Quentin, thanks for coming down. I'm very familiar with the Section 19 committee and what you do. You talked about the health reimbursement. Is like an FSA? No, it isn't. No, what's that? Can you explain the health reimbursement?
Okay, well, the FSA is flexible savings account, which
Right.
is employee money that's taken out pre-tax, which can be used for only certain qualified medical expenses, which is different from an HSA, which is a health savings account, which is the which is the employer contributing. It can also have an employee contribution as well. That, an HSA, the health savings account, goes with the employee.
Right.
So if I were to leave, if we had a health savings account and I were to leave employment of the city, that would go with me. It has other tax implications. The flexible savings account is really something that is, as I talk to teachers and explain what it is, I tend to explain it as it's a way to take money out of your paycheck, so you pay less in your income taxes. But
right.
then you could as I use it personally is a way to offset my deductible cost.
Right, so all employees of the city are allowed to have an FSA?
Yes, all employees, even if they don't get insurance from the city, being a city employee, you can take money out for a flexible savings account.
Okay, and you mentioned the reimbursement account. How does that work? Real briefly, yeah.
Okay, this is the new way of doing it. As it was explained to us as employees, as we were able to accept it, is that the city has estimated how much it would cost to cover the difference between the new high deductible and the current lower deductible plan. As they estimate that cost, and they use their own calculations, then the city then would then pay whatever the deductible number is until you get to the new deductible level. So the city is, in essence, the city is self-insuring for that smaller amount.
Okay.
Willing to hopefully see a net benefit by the end of the next fiscal year.
And that's one way you did this, just try to save some money for
Both sides.
Both sides, okay.
Yes.
And Sandy, thanks for explaining how the cost can go up, and especially with the Medicare and all that. I mean, it's a moving target with the health insurance, and I can see how it can be underfunded. But on our budget for this year, I don't know if I'm reading it right, but it looked like 12.5 million was asked for health insurance, and only 10.3 million was approved. Okay, so now, is that saying that at $2 million, is that saying that it could happen again next year on being under budget, or?
That's saying that depending on how many people, and correct me if I'm wrong, depending on how many people go above their own, and don't mind me, their own deductible.
Right.
So say they have a $1,000 deductible, and the city will cover the difference between the $1,000 and the $3,000 if the person was to go over that $1,000 deductible, in the hopes that people are not ill and that they do not reach that maximum level.
Okay, so basically, it's like a chance, you're taking a chance.
That's
and it could go up.
why.
Yeah.
Right, we're paying
Discussion.
a third-party vendor to do the reports to make sure that, and then they'll send it to us on a monthly basis, and then we'll pay the difference. But that's all employer portion. Has
Right.
nothing to do
Nothing
with
to
the
do with the
employee.
employees.
The employee has to pay whatever plan they've taken. They have to either pay the first $1,000, second $1,000. I think we have 4 tiers. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
It's a 1,000. It is by look, a $1,000 and $2,000, 1,000 single, 2,000 family, 2,000 single, 4,000 family, depending on which plan you take.
Okay.
And then it doubles accordingly with that. So to the new $4,000 and $5,000 high deductible plans.
Okay, and then this plan is for what, 1 year?
1 year.
So next year you'll do another, if it's not working out great, you can look at something else, it could be some more savings somewhere.
And we'll pray that the state is more generous.
And healthy employees?
Healthy employees.
Does that make it to a point where maybe you won't be charged as much next year?
And maybe
Health and wealth, right?
Maybe early enough in time to look at GIC.
They talked to, and they explained that why, you
Well,
know,
with-
half a
with-
year, yeah.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, that is, as we accepted this new higher deductible plan, part of our commitment is to give the GIC an honest look as a possibility as to whether or not it actually would or would not be a savings or a benefit to employees or the city.
Which is good, but it's just the
That's good.
timing, it's gotta be a lot earlier than what we do.
Well, one of the biggest problems that we have is that it's trying to, just trying to get the appropriate numbers fast enough, early enough, so that we can actually do a legitimate and fair evaluation. But understand that as employees, we're open to looking at every
Looking at it,
option.
I think that's important, yeah.
We do, Quentin, we do, believe me. I mean, I think I can speak for everyone, but Section 19 compared to the old way is a godsend in the way, this is not an easy subject
No, it
under any
isn't.
circumstances. I'm taking up Councilor Bacon's time.
I'm not done yet, though, but.
Councilor Tomlin, sorry, Linda.
Just about two more seconds. And we brought this up, and several people talked about the GIC, and I know there's two sides to everything. You gotta look at everything. It's not totally, because, and I've heard years before that most of the employees for the city, the majority of them are school teachers, and they do go into a different plan when they retire, right? So that's one thing that you gotta look at. But I appreciate that and the work you're doing, and any way we can try to, down the road, help so we don't get a position where we're gonna owe $100,000 at the end of the year, and trying to find money to do that, I think is vital. So thank you for your work. Yeah.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So Tanya, if you can, were you able to narrow down this million-plus shortfall to retirees, or is it such a mixture of things that it was not possible to see?
It is a mixture, and we all took the time to meet with one another, go by all of the different cash receipts that we get for the different medical insurance, and I do agree with what Sandy said, that we pay 4 different insurance bills. So if you're only looking at one, and that's what you're budgeting on, then you are going to have a shortfall, because you need to take into account that you are paying for the retirees and that you are paying for different constituents, not just the regular employees and the regular medical health insurance that they have.
So at this point, have you, our treasurer, the mayor, and Rory sat down together and looked at all the bills together so that they know there's 4 bills coming in? Because we've been getting these audit reports as long as I've been on the council, that, there's
We did
various
meet,
things.
yes.
Because I'm looking at a budget this year, as Counselor Tallman said, that the request came in at 12.5, and the proposal coming to council is 10.3.
That's because I did the request.
So, but this is the mayor's baby.
Correct.
I mean, he's running the show on this.
Correct.
And he's the one, on paper, making the proposal and cutting his own proposal.
Absolutely.
So we're sitting here looking at a budget that's $1 million short now. And I really think we're sitting here looking at a budget that's over $2 million short.
Well,
Because-
that depends on the liability that the city, it depends
Well,
on
I'm
the.
only doing the math based on
difference.
using your number.
Correct.
That you put forth instead of the number that's actually in the budget, 10.3. And all we can do in this budget is cut.
I understand
Right,
that.
and then you also have to, I'm sorry, but you also have to keep in mind that the brokers meet with the mayor.
Yes.
And One's Section 19,
Yeah.
and they say, okay, well, maybe we can do this, this, and this. And that's probably, and like, again, I can't speak for the mayor, I can't speak for Rory, but he has other outside influences besides the auditor and myself, that probably said, we can probably bring it down a little more, save the city a little more money.
Well, they're making big bucks to make that
Well,
prediction. And unfortunately, we're the one on the hook now for the million.
And they know we're gonna pay our bills, I think, so.
Right, and
That's
we are-
unfortunate. They know they know we have to pay our bills.
Well, exactly. So it's kind of a win-win for them. But my point is, and my other question is, I remember a number of years ago when retirees became eligible for Medicare, there was a point in time we were paying insurance anyway, but then there was a point in time we said, if you can get Medicare, you take Medicare.
Right, but you still
We're-
have to pay the
Their
city's
side.
portion, right?
Yeah.
When you look at a retiree's paycheck, or their retirement benefit, it's only 50%. They pay the employee's portion. We also pick up their RX, their prescription.
Right.
So there's, like she said, there's several
And that
bills.
can be,
That, right, that the
significant.
city is responsible to pick up. We cannot pick up, you know, and say to the retirement board, hey, you need to pay the retiree's portion. They've retired from the city. That's something that we have to address.
right, but I do think there were some savings recognized by going to the Medicare rather than staying on the insurance for people who
Well, yeah, and
could
now
have
it's.
gone on the Medicare,
Right,
which was
but-
a different matter.
But now it's the law.
Yeah.
You turn a certain age, you have to go on Medicare.
Yeah.
Which is a nice savings for the retirees, because if they were to use Health New England or Cigna, it's a little more expensive for them.
Mhm. And so I'm sure there's probably very few people still watching this at home, but for those of us who are fiscal conservatives and the people keep beating on us that, oh, you're making a big deal out of this and a big deal out of that, well, every time we open up a book and a page and we're looking for $1 million, then we're looking for another $1 million, and then we're told, well, we can find it in 3 years, but we can't find it this year. That's why you see people like me questioning how we're gonna pay these future bills, because they're not doing a great job of paying the current ones. So I see this as really on the mayor's doorstep. He's got you guys feeding him information, he's got the brokers coming into him, and I'm finding a 12.5 number change to 10.3 really unbelievable, not gonna make the cut. I just don't believe it. So I think we're looking at a $2 million budget deficit. So it's unfortunate, but I thank you for sharing with us what you have, and I hope we tighten up the books in the city, you know, further. But it's beyond the control of all of us. This is a room one power on this line. So I guess we'll just go forward and see what happens.
Tanya, when we discussed medical and health being a number of different things, it's called health in the budget, and we talked about pharmaceutical, retirement, health. Where does dental come into this?
The dental insurance is actually a self-insurance trust, which is actually, it's more of an accounting term, so it's kept outside of the general fund. But if you look in the same benefits at the bottom, it says transfer to, I think there's $300,000 put in that line.
Where does the city has a portion of
That's the city's
contributes?
That's the city's portion, so
All right,
this,
so that's not kept outside of the budget. Where is that in the budget?
it's with the rest of the benefits at the very bottom on page 48, it'll say transfer to dental trust, I believe is what it says, for $300,000, or transfer to other,
It says self-insurance trust, yeah. Doesn't say transfer, though, does
so that's for the dental trust. So what happens is
it?
the
Transfers too, yeah.
money is put into, the money is directly put into the dental insurance account and then charged off when it's paid into the expense from the general fund side. So you're only seeing obviously the city portion of it, which is the 300,000.
So we approved $300,000 for this current year,
Yes.
and is that running?
Actually, this year, that account is running fine, but from previous years, we've maintained a deficit by not contributing the city's liability into the trust fund itself. So unfortunately, we're working on that with the tax collector, the treasurer, Rory was involved. We went through, or actually I should say the tax collector went through all the accounts, because did she work for you? Is that why she has all this information? I don't know, but she's good.
She's our Munis guru, so if anything that is not right in the Munis system, she goes in and she finds out where it was posted. What had happened is it was not posted in the right Munis account. So there, we had a little bit of a discrepancy. So she has straightened that out, and moving forward, we'll have a better recording.
So
It's fine this year.
Tonight, there is no dental issue.
There's a dental issue, but it's a deficit from previous years
We're
that
not
we're,
doing anything about it tonight or tomorrow night.
excuse me?
We're not transferring money into dental tonight or tomorrow
We don't have
night.
any money to transfer, so no.
Okay.
We have nothing. That's why I went through all the lines like I did. It wasn't for fun.
Okay, any more questions about why or where?
Joe?
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, just Tanya, on that, just on that page 48, I see that the request is 300,000 and proposed by the mayor is 350. Do we know why that happened?
Probably to cover additional expenses within the dental trust. I'm not sure how we came up with that number, but I will take 350 for that. I would prefer that.
Okay, so I just want to point that out to the counselors that's possible for the 25th. The other one, and I'm sorry I had to step out, there's a, you know, when you have parents in their 80s, you know, you get calls like that, so I just had to step out of me. I'm sorry, I'll play the tape back. So I don't want to repeat what was already said. I just see 12 financial orders on transfers on this for $421,000. I see one that was dated June 4th. I see 11 that were dated tomorrow, and they're on tonight's agenda. So I don't know how that can possibly happen, because we have certain rules as the city council. So how does, I mean, I get it that we had a grant that came in, and we're all cool, you know, with a nod and a wink. You know, we kind of let the grant stuff come through for the Boys and Girls Club and for the, thank you, Jimmy, Safe Neighborhood Initiative. I don't see how, without violating our rules, we have 11 out of 12 financial orders dated tomorrow on tonight's agenda. I don't see that being even legal. So I guess I'd raise that question, just for, you know, I'm just one person, so. But, you know, I'm just one person. The other thing is, I really appreciate the treasurer being here and you two being here, the auditor being here. I don't know why the consultant is not here. I don't know why the mayor's not here. I guess it would be helpful to me if we had some kind of explanation. And I heard what the treasurer said, and I think I heard what the Ward 5 councilor said, that we've had shortfalls like this before. I guess I'd want to. I'll have to. I'm sure you explained it earlier on when I had to step outside. I'll watch. Did you explain that earlier? How we got to the 421? Okay, all right. I'll watch the tapes. I don't want you to go through that again. But I'm more curious about the dates, and why certain department heads are here, and why certain department heads that are they're paying consultants are not here to explain. They're again consultants for healthcare are not here to explain this to us in a little more detail. But those will be questions for tomorrow.
Be questions for tonight.
Well, Counselor, I mean, I appreciate, Joe, that, but I mean, Joe, this, and I know you're doing what you can. Obviously, Joe, I respect you tremendously, but, this is unusual.
It is.
I'll leave it at that.
It's not unprecedented, but it is unusual. Tanya, you and I had a conversation. We are at the end of the fiscal year. You've made, I appreciate what you've done in terms of identifying surpluses in line items. Okay, that's what an auditor does. And I still don't get the $50 in the DPW budget, but that's okay. But I do appreciate what you've done this evening, and not just answering Councilor Bartley's question, because I was about to say to you, you told us this deficit in the health insurance is running close to $1 million. And you've been trying to do your job, knowing that both DOR and the outside audit has been hounding the city to stop running this deficit. In doing so, you have identified a number of surplus items within the current budget and free cash, and you've identified and got the mayor to agree to do some transfers before the end of the fiscal year. The 11 items on our agenda this evening, items 20 through 30, are items that are actually being received. This committee cannot vote on that this evening.
I understand.
Make that clear. You and I talked about this. They are going into the same account with the discussion of the item that's in front of us now, which is an item that we can vote on this evening, and we'll probably take some type of vote before this discussion is done. I asked that these 11 items be placed on the agenda so So we did not violate the public open meeting law in terms of where you've identified surpluses. Whether the committee wishes to discuss that this evening or not, I'm not sure. What the full city council wishes to do tomorrow evening, which is the actual night which we will take a vote on these, I'm not sure. But recognizing tomorrow is the last meeting of the fiscal year of the full city council, and remembering last year at the last meeting of the full city council, a number of transfers came in and were put out to dry, quite frankly. So I did this on my own, and if the full city council wants to reprimand me, I'll take that responsibility. But I do think that the discussion is important in terms of a vote taking place tomorrow evening. So that's why they're on the agenda. There's a number of them coming in to the members of the committee. It's up to you if you want to ask questions about where the money's coming from. And tomorrow night, again, is the night that we will take the vote.
Just
What we have right now is item
16, right?
Item 16, it can be voted on, yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer.
Motion made second to approve the transfer, item number 16. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Motion is passed 4-1. Is there any discussion on items 20 through 30?
Mr. Chairman, I just got a question on those. I understand how you put these out in front of us. I'm just wondering how, in the year, if we just discuss this tonight, not vote on it, and then just take them out tomorrow and vote on it to the full council?
We're going to take them up tomorrow.
Right.
One way or the other.
Okay. And then we can vote on them tomorrow night?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know. I would like it briefly to ask a few questions of people here tonight about these, not to vote on them, but just if we can go through them all briefly to get an understanding of, where the money's coming from and why, we understand that the health insurance is low, so that's why they're all here. So I don't know how the other committee members feel, but I'd like to briefly go over each one.
Can I just go,
Councilor Leahy?
on that, can I just go and ask, we don't have legal here any longer, but does that violate the open meeting law?
It's on the agenda. So the reason it's on the agenda is not to violate the open meeting law.
But we haven't received it yet from the council.
Correct.
That's what
correct.
concerns me.
That's correct. We're going to receive them formally tomorrow evening.
Right.
Councilor McGee?
I understand what you said on putting them on the agenda to, and I guess this is what you said, you can correct me if I'm wrong, to better explain 16. 16 is just one of many to deal with the health insurance, and these are the rest of them. I get that. That makes sense to see them, because we're going to see them tomorrow, and this kind of paints a bigger picture. However, we have not received them in order to be in committee to then discuss them. So I understand the premise of showing them so that we get that big picture of the health insurance problem instead of just saying, here's 16, you can only talk about 16 because then that would violate the rules. I get that. But to say that we can actually talk about them tonight or get answers to them, I'm not comfortable with that. I believe that violates our rules because we haven't even received them yet. So I get the premise of it, but at the same time, I'm not going to be comfortable discussing 20 through 30 because we haven't received them as a council yet. That's just my point.
Any other input?
I agree.
Committee? Motion?
Take up item 17.
Can we take care of these three people first? 17, 18, and 19, I'm going to be real quick.
Yeah.
Well, at third, I think, in essence, I
Can't do anything with
get
it.
it, but there's nothing.
We can, but I respect the committee's wishes. We're not violating the open meeting law because they're on the agenda. Are the city council rules bent? Yes. Has this been done in the past? Yes. Do you prefer not to do it tonight? Make a motion to,
We can't make a motion though, because we haven't received them, so we can't leave them on the table.
They're on the,
they're on the agenda.
They're on the agenda. Must be on the website, and everything.
All right, item 17, 18, and 19, Counselor Lisi gave me a call. She cannot be here this evening. She would respectfully ask that we table each of the issues. Have to make her of these, the order. Some information has been received, some has not, but she also wants to have a public hearing with the assessors and tax collector at a future meeting.
Sounds good. Make a motion to table these.
Makes motion to receive, but to table 17, 18, and 19. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Could we come down tomorrow evening so we can discuss items on the agenda from 20 through 30? If you guys are available?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure of the committee?
So we're gonna, take items 20 to 30 to table and discuss tomorrow night? That could be in order?
Where we ta- I mean,
I mean, they're on here, I mean, yeah, they're here on the agenda. We're not discussing them, just to,
I don't,
you can
well,
because
you're
they're
not
not.
taking them up.
Okay, well,
Procedure-wise, I guess if you don't take them up, you're just gonna take them up tomorrow when they come on the agenda. And I guess you, this is what I don't know, this is what I need an opinion on.
Right,
is
right.
You could make a motion to adjourn, they weren't taken up.
There's a second to that motion.
Second.
Motion made, second to adjourn. Is there any discussion on that motion?
No discussion on that.
All those in favor? Any opposed? We stand adjourned.